All right, what is up, guys? Let me know if you can see and hear me all right. I'm just getting finished setting up here. I literally have my water going already. It's almost up to temp to start mashing in, but I do have to do my water additions yet. So we're going to give that just a few seconds uh, and let everybody get on. But in the meantime, let me know in the chat if you can see and hear me all right. Make sure everything is going okay. Somebody give me a quick thumbs up in the chat. In the meantime, I'm going to grab my water additions to throw in here quick, and we're again almost up to mash temperature. Again, we're brewing a spruce tip pale ale. I'm calling it just the spruce tip. Let me know if you guys can see and hear me all right in the chat quick. Let me grab my water additions and we're going to get those in, and then we will start our mash process. What's up, Patrick? How are you, man? Good, good, good. Glad you can see and hear me all right. Let me grab my water additions and let's get this thing started. All right. It's kind of a pain when I have to do all this and film and all that junk, but we are doing it for you guys. So let's get her done. Let's see what I got for ingredients. Again, water salts are going to be up to your water profile. I'm going to add some calcium chloride, some Epsom salt, and gypsum. So I got 4 grams of calcium chloride. Looks like my water's hitting its temp. I'm going to actually just go ahead and shut off the heat for right now. It is recirculating in my claw hammer system as we speak. So it is sitting there recirculating the water, but I don't want to heat up much more than that because we will be mashing in and then we'll get the heat turned on after that. Enclave in the house. Happy New Year, everybody. Merry Christmas also. Get my water additions put in. I didn't get that chance to do that quick this morning. I was running around everywhere, so getting that done. 4 grams of that. 4 grams of calcium chloride. We got about 6 grams of gypsum. We got some lactic acid and then some Epsom salt I need to throw in here. So it's 6 grams of gypsum. Again, if you are not familiar with water salts, I have a whole video on how to do that. It's called, I think the video is called Beer Got That Homebrew Taste. And then it talks about water additions and all that kind of stuff. It is linked in almost all of my videos. So if you've ever watched a different brew day video, that link is in there, or you can search it just in the video section just to learn a little bit more about how to do water additions. DJ's in the house. What's up, man? Happy New Year. We got Epsom salt, 3 grams of that. I always buy one of those giant bags of Epsom salt, but then I throw it in a little shaker because you don't really need much. So I don't want to have that huge bag out here. So let's see, 3 grams of that, right? Is that what it said? Yes. All right, our water is heated up. I've got all the grains all milled up already. I did that last night, thankfully, because I wouldn't have had time to do that today. And you would have been watching me mill my grains, which is not fun. All right. We got all of our water additions besides our lactic acid in there. So I'm going to go ahead and put that. All those are weighed out right here. Put those in there and let those recirculate for a little bit. Well, I'm throwing in some lactic acid. I also need about 5 milliliters of that. So I'm going to grab that quick. And I always throw in a Camden tablet too as we get started in this thing. Let me grab one of those. I normally wouldn't crush this thing up because it just kind of dissolves in there, but since we are just about to mash in, I am going to do that quick and let this kind of go for a little bit. All right, we got Camden tablet in, we got calcium chloride in, we got gypsum in, and we got Epsom salt in. Good. We got lactic acid right here for those who don't know, that's obviously a little liquid. You can also use acidulated malt. I use the lactic acid like this, and then I just use a little medicine dropper that you can get like literally for free at any pharmacy, or if you've ever got medicine at all from liquid form. That's how I measure it out. And I need 5 milliliters of that. Close enough. All right, so all of our water is ready to go now. I have the only thing I need to weigh out beforehand is my ascorbic acid, which I normally add during the mash, but I do it after I mix the grains in. So you can see my water has continued to heat up because that element's still in there, even though the heat isn't on. So that's good. It's a couple of degrees more than we want it, and that's perfect because when we mash in, that will drop a little bit. All right. Anyone celebrate something cool on the New Year's? Do anything fun last night? I stayed up till about 1 o'clock. Had a little headache this morning. Definitely wasn't from the 10% St. Bernardus Christmas ale I was drinking. It was definitely the one glass of champagne I had at midnight. No, I'm just kidding. Do you add lactic acid to the sparge water as well? If you are doing sparge water, yes. In my case, I use a claw hammer all-in-one system, and so I'll kind of show you that. I do have another camera set up on that. So here's my claw hammer just next to me, but in the camera on the top left there, you can see that. This is an all-in-one kind of a brew in a bag type system. But if I did have a sparge system like I used to do in my Rubbermaid container cooler mash tun, then yes, I would add lactic acid to both to make sure the water is correct overall. And then I would use the same amount or the correct amount in for my strike water and my sparge water, right? So it's more important for the mash pH, in my opinion. So if you're going to do one versus the other, add the lactic acid in the mash because the mash pH is more important to help with that conversion. So make sure you do that. I used to use a calculator on Brewger. It's Brewgr, so Brewgr.com. But they're actually closing down as of the 15th. I went on their website today and I realized they're merging with Brewer's Friend, which is another website I use anyway. But I thought their calculator was a little more spot on when it came to the mash and sparge infusion calculator. So when you do actually use a sparge calculator, that seemed to be a little bit more accurate in my, at least for my purposes when I was doing the kind of mash tun, Rubbermaid mash tun. But that will get in the ballpark about what volumes you need anyway. And then the Brewer's Friend app is what I use to show how you would add lactic acid or gypsum and that kind of stuff and when to add that in your water. Just home chilling with my kid. Yep, I figured today would be a good day to brew because people had stuff to do yesterday, and today they might be just kind of hungover sitting on the couch and want to listen to me talk about beer, but not necessarily have to drink it. So I will have a beer here shortly. I just haven't had one yet. We'll wait till we mash in, and then I'll share with you some stuff I have coming up on the channel and some things that I've already brewed already. So it's been about a month since I've been on here. And I'll kind of explain why I took a little hiatus for a little bit. But give me just a second to grab some of that other thing, and we'll get mashed in here. Speaking of, while I'm doing this, I can say this. If you guys are newer to the channel or have not gotten stickers from me, I send out stickers for free. And you can go look on the bottom of the screen right now, cityscapebrew@gmail.com. It'll keep scrolling around, and I'll send stickers like this to you guys. Yours won't be bent and mashed up like this, but I'll send some free stickers to you guys in the mail, free of charge. All I need is your name and your mailing address, and I like to spread the love. You can stick them on wherever you want throughout your journeys as brewers. And one guy sent me a picture the other day, and I can't remember. I'll look on my phone in a minute and call him out because I thought it was cool. He went to Hawaii and put it at one of the breweries in Hawaii. How awesome is that, man? That's super cool. So I thought that was really neat. So shout out to him for doing that. I'll give him a shout out here in a second because that was really cool. All right, we are ready to go for the mash in. I have all my grains. Let's quick go through what we're talking about real quick before we mash in, just to give those salts and stuff a little bit extra time. And I need to throw my basket in there. That probably might help too. All right, so we are brewing up a spruce tip pale ale. I'm calling just the spruce tip. It is going to be, and I'll have the recipe. I don't have it linked yet in the live description under here, but I will do that. We'll also do a quick follow-up video, like a long format video, where I kind of share this also. But I have this all printed off, and I will share it as a PDF in a link below after I get done brewing today. So, just the spruce tip pale ale. It is going to be 11 pounds of Pilsner, and then I have a half pound each of dark Munich, Vienna, and Carapils. The Carapils is to help with that head retention. We are going to be throwing in some kind of oily spruce tips, so adding a half pound will help with that. And then the Vienna and dark Munich are kind of we'll keep the beer a little bit more light than adding like a crystal malt and a little bit less sweet. It'll be more of that kind of bready flavor. And I'm hoping that kind of plays off with the spruce tips a little bit. And then I'm adding rounds of hops, which we'll talk about, both Mosaic and Citra, and then of course spruce tips throughout, and both during the boil process today. And then I'm going to also add some during active fermentation. We'll talk a little bit about why I'm doing both of those, and then I'm going to be using yeast, which is going to be the West Coast Ale 1 from Omega, which is a good one I used for like Sierra Nevada and that kind of stuff with their pale ale. And it's a great yeast to use. Has a little bit more of a kind of a fruity character than like a USO5. So I've got my ascorbic acid that I normally add into the mash right here. And we're going to go ahead and mash in. So let me shut off my recirculation here. I'm going to close the valve on the front of this so we don't have water leaking everywhere. I usually have all this stuff set up ahead of time, but I'm running behind this morning. I was a little late getting out of bed. As you can imagine. All right, hopefully the lid stays there. We have our basket for our grains that goes inside. That's our basically brew in a basket set, or brew in a bag setup right here. And then we're going to mash in our grains, which I have them all in this bucket right here, ready to go. All right, this is about as full of a beer as I've done on this thing. It's like I have to get the air out of it to make sure it's below the basket link here, or lid here. I'm going to turn back on our heat so we can get that thing keeping up to speed. Whoop, not the recirculation, just the heat. And then I might recirculate the first little bit that comes out for volume. I might actually put into a little pitcher to make sure that I'm below this basket a little bit. I'm very close to the top, and as I recirculate, I'm really worried I put a little bit too much water in there to start, I think, maybe by a quarter pound or a quarter gallon or something like that. All right, so I'm going to actually recirculate the lid back into the bucket just for a second, just to push some of that water out. So there's water in the lines first. So the most of what's coming through here right now is just water that I don't really want to get back into the basket. So I'm just running some in there, but it won't be super starchy yet. Perfect. So I'll put that back on here. I'm going to give this a good stir around. I'm going to add our ascorbic acid. This is going to help with oxidation later on and help preserve the beer. So all right, now that we're good, all stirred up, I'm going to go ahead and turn on this recirculation. And what that's going to do is basically it's pushing, open up our valve. It's pushing all that wort through the lines from the bottom back up through the top, and it's spraying out a nozzle here, as you can see, through the top. And this is about as full, again, as I've ever had this thing. I probably should have done just like a 5-gallon batch in this thing versus a 5.5 because I had almost 13 pounds of grains. But again, I think I overshot the water just a little bit in there. Normally, it's not quite up to the top of that basket. But if you did a 5-gallon batch, it would have been no big deal with 13 pounds of grain. I've done that before. But also, if you have any questions, comments, I'll get to those in a second in the chat section. So make sure that you're leaving any questions that you have. Today is really just as we sit here and wait now for an hour for our mash to finish up. It is about questions. We're going to be transferring one of my other beers from and cleaning a keg quick because I did kick a keg yesterday, and I have a different beer that I'm going to be having on the channel later that's ready to go into that keg. I also have some apple cider I need to put in one of my other kegs too. So as we have extra time, I'll be doing some other stuff too, and you guys can ask questions about whatever. So put those questions in the chat. Speaking of chat, let's take a look at it and see what we got. If you live in Sweden, absolutely, I will send it to you. No questions asked. You don't need to pay for postal codes. I will send them anywhere in the world. So it costs me a little extra, but that's what I do for you guys. I'm a team player. It doesn't matter where you live. No big deal. Yeah, so sparge water, I try to do the same pH. You want about 5.2, like Enclave said in the mash for the pH. Oop. Jeremy, Lincoln Show, how are you, man? I'm going to be on Jeremy's show. By the way, if you haven't, go ahead and subscribe to Jeremy Lincoln Show. We're going to be doing a podcast. He's starting one this year. I think he's starting this month, right? Starting in January. He's got a bunch of people lined up. It's going to be awesome. Hopefully, he does really well. And we'll be look for me in February. I think early February we're planning on that. So that's awesome. We'll be on his podcast. But if you haven't, go check out the Jeremy Lincoln Show and subscribe to him. Ascorbic acid, that lactic acid doesn't do. Good question. So there's some other, and I'm not a chemist, so don't quote me on any of this stuff. But I've read a lot of stuff. I've watched a bunch of videos on different things about preventing oxidation. Obviously, you can do other things post boil to prevent oxidation and post fermentation, of course. But what you really, no matter what we do, we're always going to have to do a little bit, unless you have a truly closed pump system, that kind of stuff. You may have to, fill bottles, or you might have to, open up a fermenter to transfer to a keg. What I do is I try to not move that stuff around, but I don't pressure transfer into kegs. I do gravity still, so I still have to let air in from the top, but I don't shake it all around. But what the ascorbic acid does, they even put it in like stuff like apple juice and other stuff that sits on the store shelf to help from the apples from browning and things. So if you look on the package of apple juice, a lot of times it'll say apples and ascorbic acid, which is just vitamin C. So the vitamin C scrubs out some of that oxidation that lactic acid doesn't. So it's not an acid that's going to lower your mash. It helps prevent and preserve your beer longer. So lactic acid, I do use both. So DJ, I used lactic acid at the beginning. I had 5 milliliters of that to lower the pH. The ascorbic acid I add after I put in my grains, and that helps with the oxidation. Hey, Jeremy, yeah, I agree. 3-gallon batches are great. I share a lot with my homebrew clubs. I enter a bunch of competitions and stuff too, so I end up using a couple of gallons just for that kind of thing. And then I usually have about 3 gallons also. So I do a little bit of everything. But I'd usually do about 5.5 because by the time I actually transfer into a keg and that kind of stuff, I usually have 5 or a little bit more. If I shoot for 5 in a fermenter, I'm only getting about 4.5, maybe 4 3/4 ish after trub and everything into the keg. So I'm trying to do 5.5 in the fermenter, so I get about 5 or so in the keg. But yes, for these bigger ones, especially for this system, if I had one critique of claw hammers, I wish they did like an 11-gallon or even 12-gallon kettle, and that way it would give you that kind of room with extra basket space and stuff in order to do even a 6-gallon batch. But most people, if they're doing 5 or 5.5 gallons, this is really pushing it with 12.5 to 13 pounds of grain for the amount of water you want to use. Now you could always just reduce the volume and then add water later, which I may have to do if I lost some water volume right away, what I just did this morning. But that's not a huge deal either, but I'd rather have it all the way in there through the whole process. You can add ascorbic acid at a couple different places during the mash, or excuse me, during the brewing process, or even afterwards. I think a lot of commercial breweries, they won't add it at the mash stage. They'll add it actually before they package in their beer, before they actually put it in cans. And so what I found, since I don't can or bottle anything really, it works great just to do it beforehand. But I guess from what I've read, there's some type of chemistry that happens during the mash process that helps unlock or prevent that oxidation now anyway. So just don't have to worry about mixing it in later, which I think would be harder to prevent oxidation if you did that post fermentation. So I just add it now. Ever since I've been doing this too, my beer is good till like literally the last glass. I used to have beers that I felt like they were getting a little oxidized or old or stale, if you will. And this has really helped prevent that. And I don't know if it's just in my head, like, hey, I've been brewing more and getting better at it, and now I don't have that issue, or if it's truly this stuff. But since it's super cheap, you can buy a whole 4 pound or a pound bag of it for like $10. And I'm only using 4 grams per brew. It's super cheap just for peace of mind, if anything, for me. In theory, yes, lactic acids tend to work a little better, just to pH, but you could, if you ran out of lactic, could you use ascorbic? I think you'd have to use quite a bit, and then it might actually affect some things if you use ascorbic. I know you can use citric acid. There's an option for that in Brewer's Friend even. You might be able to use ascorbic acid. I've never heard of anyone doing that, but I mean, any type of acid, I guess, would reduce pH. It's just about, how much. But I'm almost finished with my first brew of the day, which is a coffee, because I needed that guy this morning. But then we will a switch to a beer here in a minute, because I do have some lighter kinds. I did have a sour, but that's the one that ran out yesterday, which would have been a kind of good one to start with, more like a juice in the morning. But here we are. You're welcome for the shout out, Makes. That's going to be a cool show. I hope you do really, really well, man. We need more people in the brewing space to kind of get the word out and get people interested, and then realize it's really not that hard. We kind of make it look a little more hard than it really is, and that's why, when I first started brewing, I started with like a pretty rudimentary system, and I have a lot of those videos on my channel still, of course. And the most popular video still on my channel is my all grain brew day using that kind of earlier system. And so I'm super proud of that, actually, because that's how most people get started in the whole hobby. Happy New Year, Sean. Welcome, welcome. I will use Camden tablets before bottling. Yeah, you could do that also. That helps kill yeast sometimes though. So you depends on if you bottle that it's already carved up. But if you use Camden tablets before bottling, you can actually inhibit yeast from actually making carbonation. So you don't want to do that either. But Camden tablets are temporary. They kind of kill off, and then a couple days later, it kind of lets the process start all over again. I have an apple cider video where I actually have to kill all the yeast and keep it killed. So when I add apple juice back to back sweeten it, or if you do like wine, you do the same thing, and you'll use potassium sorbate. So you have that and Camden tablets, or was it? That's potassium metabisulfate. And so those two you would use to kill the yeast for good. And then it won't create bottle bombs sitting in like a warmer shelf in your other rooms. Because I have a bunch of ciders that I leave sitting in a bedroom until I throw a couple bottles in the refrigerator or something. So to do that, you want for Camden tablets, you could kill some yeast if you do that. Just FYI. The salts I've read is the best way to add them is on top of the grains. What do you think that does? Does it add, or I add it right in the water, sometimes the night before. If I'm actually setting up to brew the next morning and I know I'm going to brew early, really with the water salts, you don't add those salts because you're putting them on top of the grains and it's not doing anything specific to the grains. What you're doing is you're trying to change your water profile as if it came out of the ground that way anyway, right? So in this, maybe besides the lactic acid, you'd probably want to add that right away. But for water salts, you're kind of trying to, especially for certain styles, you're trying to mimic the water profile from that country, right? So if you're in, say, the Czech Republic and brewing a Pilsner in Pilsen, which is what we went to for the Pilsen Urquell tour, which is awesome. Pilsner Urquell tour. They have a specific water profile that makes their beer kind of their beer, right? And so when you brew one of those, you want to mimic that region's water profile. Same with other styles that are closer to Belgium or the UK or anywhere else in the world that has a very popular beer style. And so when you are adding those salts, it's not important to add it during or when you're adding the grains. The water minerals are already in there. So I don't use an RO system. Some people do, and they have no mineral content, right? But if you have groundwater, which is what I use, and I use city water that has chlorine in it, hence why I add the Kempton tablet. But that already has some minerals in it, and actually our water here, thankfully, where I live near the Charlotte, North Carolina area, actually has really good water for brewing. It's actually super good, especially for pilsners and lighter beers. I don't have to really add anything, but when I add something like a gypsum or calcium chloride or something like that, it's to help accentuate something in the beer. So for instance, we're adding more gypsum, that's going to give it some more sulfates, and that chloride sulfate ratio is going to be going to make it either more mouthfeel where it has more pillowy like a hazy IPA, or the chloride going to have that more bite for like help those hops shine through, so it'll be a little bit more kind of dry and crisp tasting. So that's chloride sulfate ratio is actually really important. So for like this one, let's see if I got my water on this page. Do I have that on there? Water profile. Oh, it didn't print off. That's weird. I have it listed, but it like cut off the bottom of the page. I'll look it up here in a minute. But basically, you want that to be like most of the time it's like 50 to 150 ratio, one way or the other. Let me just look it up on Brewer's Friend quick. I can log in and share my kind of recipe that we're going on today. So yeah, here's my recipe. Let me share my screen quick. Let me tell you which one to look at. Sorry about that. Display. There we go. Sorry about that. All right, so here's my recipe here. Here's all my fermentables and stuff. Again, this will be on in a link below after I get off here. I didn't add it in there, but here's where my target water profile is. So I have 87 calcium, 5 magnesium, sodium is 10, chloride is 62, and then it's about double the SO4. That's going to make it that more kind of crisp, clean. If these were flip-flops, the chloride and sulfate, where the chloride was higher by double or 3/4 or something like that, then you would have more of that pillowy mouthfeel that you need for like a hazy IPA. So that's the difference basically for this one here. So this one's going to be that it's kind of pale ale-ish, right? Until you want to be that clean, crisp. You want those spruce tips and those hops that we're going to be adding to kind of shine in and shine through. So we want to make sure that those are kind of accentuated. It's not supposed to be this pillowy, softer mouthfeel. But you could, the more that difference is, like mine's 50 to 50% of chloride versus sulfate. If I increase the sulfates, it would be even more bite. So I don't want it to be more than that. So I did about 50-50 or 50% more on the one versus the other. Rich Hart in the house. What's up, man? Sparta Brewing. Morning. Happy New Year. I love a apple butter sizer. Yep, there you go. Bottle and a sizer. Rich, that's good. Vorloff as an understanding is recirculating with the water on top of the grain. Yeah, so Vorloffing, DJ. Now that my coffee's cold, I'll switch to a beer because that's going to be cold too. So vorloffing is different than lautering. So lautering is the process of kind of recirculating through the grain, right? So you have your sparge water that's lautering through, right? But your vorloffing is essentially when you're kind of recirculating to build up that grain bed and to clear up the beer. So my recirculation is kind of doing that right now. That's kind of a Vorloff process. But what I used to do so the Vorloffing process is kind of, when you're sparging and rinsing, it's building that grain bed. You're kind of doing both during that process. It's building that grain bed. It's also clearing up the beer. So that grain bed basically filters out all the smaller particulates. But yes, that's the Vorloff process. I don't think I've tried a spruce tip beer before, Sparger. Yes, you know what? I have I haven't brewed with spruce tips before. I've tasted some, and they vary depending on where you get them from. And some people won't just use spruce tips; they'll use some other pine type tips as well to give it more of a piney flavor. But spruce is very different. You think piney, you think almost like Christmas tree, and it's not that. It's very sweet. It's a little bit more of a subtle, less of a piney bite. Let me show you what they look like. All right, here's the rest of them. So anyway, I have a couple of them vacuum sealed because I don't know if I'm going to use all of them, but they look kind of a little different in there. So I pulled out the bigger package. Excuse me. Probably should let these things warm up anyway, but we got to waste before we're going to start adding these in the boil. But they're just the little tiny tips of the spruce tree as they're growing. So as they grow in the spring, they actually pick these things off. It's kind of harder to see with the glare. Sorry about that. They pick these things off. And so they're just little fragments. But if you smell these, oh man, I wish you guys could smell it. It's almost like a Swedish, not Swedish like the country, like a sweet-ish flavor. It has some kind of piney aromas, almost like a pine tree aroma, but very, very subtle. It's more of like a sweet. I don't know. Like it's hard to smell. It's hard to describe it. But it's really, really good. It smells delicious. But this is kind of the flavor you also get in the beer itself. And so I'm going to be adding these. I guess this is a good time to talk about that anyway. I'm going to be adding these at the end of the boil. I'm going to add about, let's see what I got, 5 ounces at about 10 minutes left in the boil. I'm also going to add 3.5 ounces, which I could actually just add this whole thing because it's 3.5 ounces, in the primary fermenter at high Krausen. Basically, like I would do a high Krausen hop addition for like a hazy IPA. But I want there to be quite a bit of alcohol already produced, so it's going to be kind of after high Krausen happens. I usually would pitch about 24 hours in. I'm probably going to wait about 36. Once there's quite a bit of alcohol present, these things have been kind of dunked and sanitized, and then I froze them anyway, so there shouldn't be any nasties on here. Hopefully, I'll probably take these things out before I do this. Dunk them one kind of last time very quickly in some sanitizer, and then I'm going to throw these guys into the primary fermenter as it's fermenting. The reason I'm doing that, I read something on Brewlosophy did a kind of side by side of when they add spruce tips, and some of you guys may have seen that before. But he said he got more of kind of a different flavor, more of a piney flavor, if you will, from when adding it into the the post during primary fermentation. Excuse me, I can talk. The during primary fermentation. So beforehand he didn't. He got a little bit. The one he added them just all in the boil, and he got more of that spruce flavor. But he kind of preferred some of the flavors he got from post fermentation. So he did it both ways, or not post fermentation, during primary fermentation, not after the boil. So in this particular case, I'm going to try to get a little bit best of both worlds. He suggested he may do that in the future, and I don't know if he ever did, but that would be a cool experiment. So I'm thinking I'm just going to try, and I'm adding more in the boil so I get more of that sprucey flavor. But to get a little bit of pine flavor, I'm going to add a little bit in the primary and see what happens. We're just gonna wing it. Ty's in the house. Happy New Year, man. Hope everybody had a good Christmas. I've had about a month break, and since I did my holiday giveaway thing. By the way, congratulations to the 3 folks who got that. I got some pictures back from some people, so that was cool. Hope everybody enjoyed getting the little gift baskets in the mail, those who won. So I got those out. I still have a couple of sticker requests that I have to email out. So if you haven't gotten that, feel free to just wait a little bit, or send me a message, because I do have some to send out yet still in my inbox. But I will do that this week, because I'm gonna have some time later today, and then probably over the weekend, to get those ready to go. So we got I came back from Thanksgiving weekend, and we were leaving to go on our cruise that I mentioned over the last couple of live videos that I did, and so we went on a cruise. And of course, when you're on a cruise with 4,000 people, it's easy to pick up a bug. I got about a week cold, so like a week long cold, I should say. So when I got back, I wasn't going to do the live the day I got back from the cruise, but I was planning on doing one the weekend after. But I was still under the weather. I was still really congested. I had a bad cough, and all I'd been doing is coughing and yakking on stuff. And I probably didn't need to be drinking a lot that weekend. So I decided I was just going to skip that. And then the following weekend, which was this last weekend after Christmas, I said, instead of doing one I want to brew up this Spruce Tip Ale, and I didn't get a chance to do that anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and just do this live, since this is kind of after Christmas anyway. But some people might be interested in buying some spruce tips in the spring, because that's when they pick them. So it actually is coming up pretty soon to be able to buy some spruce tips. These were frozen from the I think I got them at a place like in Montana or something like that. Maybe I'll put a link. Let me write that down so I don't forget. Let me put a link in the video description of where I bought these. And then you guys can see if you can get them shipped to your house, depending on where you live. So I'm going to put Spruce Tip recipe on there, and then the Spruce Tip link to purchase. So you guys can see where I got those, and add them yourself if you want to. So if you want to brew up the same type of thing, go ahead. Absolutely. Sparger, you're very welcome, man, for the package. He was one of our winners as a channel member. By the way, all those who are in the green are channel members. They're awesome. They help support the channel by a couple bucks a month, and they get some extra perks. Like they get my Brew Day videos a little early. They get some extra emojis and cool stuff during the chats. They also get all of my old past lives. I leave a couple of them up, but then I make them members only. So if you want to go back and look at all the old live videos that I've done, that is a perk to being a member of the channel. Only a couple bucks a month, but helps out the channel, man. I tell you, during some times when it's kind of slow during the summer, it's nice to have channel members and a good community built up to kind of help support the channel, because there's ebbs and flows with the YouTube algorithm. So it is what it is. Sometimes I'm just flying to get a lot of subscribers and members, and other months not so much. But it really kind of depends on what's going on. And it's been kind of a weird year. People not really sure they want to advertise and stuff. So that's just part of you're at the mercy of the lithogram. So YouTube will push some stuff, but it is helpful having you guys as awesome channel members, man. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you guys. But with that, I'm gonna get my first beer. And we are getting into almost 30 minutes into the mash here. I'm going to stir that thing up again. This is my wet hopped IPA. So this is the one that I grew with the hops in my backyard. I have Centennial and Cascade hops that I grow back there. This is the first year I did that, and it turned out really good. This is a great beer. I probably should have added a little more hops, but it's hard to tell how many oils you're going to have with the dry hops and stuff, or not dry hops, but the regular hops that you grow yourself. So now that I'll know. But I think next year I'll also get some larger cones and more cone production because it was my first year growing. Both plants are brand new, so I think the output this next year will be really good. But this turned out really good. The only critique I would have for it is I'd probably add a little less crystal next time so I can let those hops kind of shine through because this crystal malt I added a little bit extra and I shouldn't have because it kind of is more of a malty flavor, which is good. It's still great this time of year, but it is kind of subduing the hop potential that could have been there. Brewing Bad in the house. What's up, man? Cheers to the new year. Thank you. Hope your spruce ale comes out well. I'm enjoying mine. Yeah, that's right. You were telling me you were doing a spruce one. That's awesome. You did spruce and fir. It was like a Christmas tree in a glass. And I was telling people that people sometimes add more stuff than just spruce tips. And so I got some of those. I think it's because of our conversation that I bought these actually and was thinking about doing that. And I think right after he messaged me, I was like, you know what? I need to maybe buy some. I think I bought them like literally sitting on the couch right as you mentioned that. So this is probably because of you that I'm brewing this thing all together. So that's awesome. I've been meaning to do kind of a Christmas beer anyway, but I got under the weather a little bit after coming home from my cruise, and it just wasn't in the cards to make it happen before Christmas anyway and get it edited and all that. So I said, you know what? I'm just going to do it live. Who cares? Yeah, homebrew trend. I think it always has ebbs and flows, right? I'm part of a homebrew club. It's we have membership is a little bit down this year than it was in other years, but we have old members that were really active before that have kind of got out of it, but then they come back into the hobby, and there's always new people that are getting into it. So I think the more exposure you can get to kind of seeing that you can do this yourself and it's fairly easy, is a good way. So there are, smaller kits that are even easier than extract brewing kits now that you can kind of just add all this stuff, no boil type stuff, um, and try to make your first beer. I started out with a Mr. Beer kit, and that I was like, hey, look, I made a beer in my kitchen, cool. And then it all went downhill from there. No, I'm just kidding. So here I am later doing a whole YouTube setup, brewing live for people, and making my own beer, every other couple of weeks. Northwest Small Batch Brewing in the house. What's up, man? Cheers. Happy New Year to you guys. Garage Brewing. Also, Twin Monkeys for here. Yes. Yeah, we got everybody in the house today. I'm glad to see you guys all. Hope you had a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Hope Santa brought you all some brewing stuff. Anyone get some brewing stuff or make a cool beer for the holidays anyway? Besides, we just talked about the Spruce Christmas one that Brewing Bad did. I think many of us are Mr. Beer survivors. Yeah, I saw Mr. Beer kit in the store the other day. I was like, you know what? I should buy one of those and do a video on it. I should buy one and just recreate like the same thing. I think I even bought like a Pilsner or something like that. And I was like, I didn't put fermentation temperature control and stuff, but I should just kind of do it just to do it. See what happens. I think with now, if they don't already, I don't know what kind of yeast they put in there. It's probably some like USO5 type yeast, but they really should put something like a Kvike in there because then it would turn out actually really good because most people are just going to leave it in a bedroom. So let me stir this around. By the way, it's been like almost getting a half an hour, but I need to make sure I stir this really good. One of the things that I found with the claw hammer system is stirring it around a couple times during this thing is super important. If I just kind of let this go and only stirred it like once or twice, it would be I don't get as good of efficiency. So I think sometimes it just kind of sits and it makes its way around the grains, but not really through the basket. And so, but if I stir it quite a bit of times, especially I guess, I'm not just wait until the end, then I think I get some better efficiency. So that really, really does help with this system. Because with my old system, I did a batch sparge. So I'm basically re-dumping in all the sparge water and batch sparging and mixing all those grains up again. And then it's just truly rinsing everything out of one. I just had a bazooka screen at the bottom of that thing. And that really I got much better efficiency. But I find if I can either double crush the grains or stir it a bunch of times, and then I really let this thing drain out too, when I pull the basket, it does help. And so stirring that as much as you can really does help a lot. So that little tip for you, if you do have a claw hammer or similar type system, it does help to stir that quite a bit, even though it is doing that recirculation through there. Another thing I get some questions all the time too about why I ferment not ferment, why I mash below 150. Everybody gets a package in the mail and they're like, or mail or pick it up at their homebrew supply, and it's like, well, it says 152 because that's the sweet spot between beta and alpha amylase, and you get some of the more malty and some of the hoppy stuff, and we want a little bit of both of the pale ale or something like that, and that's true, but I find that I prefer beer when it's a little bit more like that crisp, clean, almost like a lager crispness, like a good IPA. If you think of a good, think of, I don't know, Bell's Two Hearted Ale or something like that. When you drink that, you get that multi flavor anyway, but you get that kind of crisp, clean finish. And I think at 152 or even higher than that, you're not going to get that much of a bite without really changing your water profiles a little bit. So one thing I've told people is when you could have a great recipe and it could be doing at 152, brew that exact same recipe again, but mash it like 148 or 149. So like I'm doing at 149 right now. But you will realize like that will turn out so much crisper and cleaner than you did before. It's unreal how much that makes a difference. Just doing that, because those starches can be converted more. You get a little bit more efficiency, and you get a little bit more alcohol content at the end of the day by doing a little bit lower mash temperature, but it'll also help it kind of clear up a little bit. I mean, look at how freaking crystal clear this beer is. You can read right through it. And I didn't add any type of I don't filter my beers. So this is just, I mean, it's been sitting in a keg for a while too, but I add a Whirlflock tablet at the end. I'll add some yeast nutrient, also towards the end to help with fermentation, but that's it. And then it's just time and making sure that you recirculate really well. But that mash temperature, lowering that down into the 140s really does help. Bill Mack, what's up, man? Brewing up an IPA tomorrow. Sweet. What kind of hops are you using? I also mash lower than 150. Yes, 100%, man. I tell you, it's a game changer. You start thinking these little tiny things. It's not really that you have a bad recipe. It's that there's process differences, and that's where I think people get a little bit intimidated, even new brewers, about that kind of stuff. But nobody said go recreate the wheel, man. Go find a recipe that's really awesome. That's why I share literally every single one of my recipes, besides a few that are for members only. But that's what that's the whole plan, is to share. Let you guys brew some beers that I know are good. Obviously, I've won some medals and stuff that are on the wall back here with some of the recipes that I've done on the channel, and I didn't know how they were going to turn out until we did it, and then we threw them in a competition, and guess what? Here they are, right? So cool thing is that you'll brew better beer than you think you are, and you don't have to recreate the wheel right away. You can brew other beers that other people have done, and then kind of put your own spin on it sometimes. Like take one of my recipes, change a couple of the hops, change the yeast, change something, see how you like it that way, right? And then it's all about learning. When I first started, I did a lot of mash style beers. So that's, or smash beers, not mash, smash, single malt and single hop. And it kind of gave me like, what does Maris Otter taste like? More than a Pilsner, more than whatever, right? So you have a single malt and a single hop and then the yeast, and you can just play around with that. I did a lot of Cascade, or I did Mosaic and Maris Otter malt. I did a lot of smashes with that, and then I tried different yeast types, and that made me really realize that, man, I was using USO5 and White Labs 001 for like everything, because it just like, well, this is the clean ale yeast, right? This is the one everybody uses for ales. I hardly use that now for yeasts because there's so much better choices depending on the flavors that you want to go for. And yeast is a big change when it comes to flavors and stuff. So I suggest people do that. It's awesome. I brewed a two hearted with the saved yeast and stout over Christmas break. That's right, Ty. How'd that turn out, man? So the two hearted ale, what he's referring to is you can harvest the yeast out of the bottles. I have some actually in my fridge. I think I have some still. You guys are in luck. Maybe I'll do this later so I can show you guys. So this is gonna be hard to see over this, but here's the Bell's Two Hearted Ale, right? And in the bottles, I have bottles and cans, but I keep way too many beers. So one of the things that this does is they don't filter their beer. So actually, you can probably see it a little bit. Maybe. Let's look. On the very bottom, oh, it's gonna be hard with the glare. Maybe I'll hold up my phone behind it or something. On the very bottom of this, there is a very thin, small layer of yeast on the bottom, and they don't filter their beers. And the Bell's Two Hearted yeast is awesome. It's one of the best. This is what makes their beer, is their yeast. And they use this yeast for all of their beers except for like their Belgians or something else. They use it for their Oberon wheat ales. They use it for their IPAs. They use it for everything, hazy, everything. So it is a yeast called Imperial A62 Bell's House Yeast. Imperial makes it, but they don't sell it anywhere except for Bell's website. So you can buy it there, or you can just harvest it out of the bottles. And I have a video on how to do that. And so Ty, I'm assuming, did that for his beer, and I'm wondering how it turned out. That's going to be awesome. Their yeast is super good. So what you do is you basically just put a little bit, like you make a tiny little starter. You swirl that up for like 3 days. You won't see very much fermentation action in that, but then you ramp it up to a liter starter, and it really takes off, and you get a whole liter starter of their yeast. It's awesome. That's what she said. Fuller mouthfeel. Yeah. So yeah, that's exactly right, Patrick. So if you like that more malty flavor, I know a lot of people do. I know some of my friends are like not big IPA fans. I happen to love them, right? I like a hoppier beer. Some people aren't. So they like the maltier flavors. They like the Vienna lagers. They like the Munich style beers, that kind of stuff. And um, those are great, or Marzen style, I should say. Those are great styles that need that higher mash temperature to create that more malty backbone. But that doesn't mean you can't add more hops. It's just going to help you get that more malty mouthfeel. So if that's something you like, you up that temperature, right? But if you are really truly going for a clone of a beer that you think has that crisper mouthfeel, lowering that helps too. So let me throw on this. I didn't put on this light over here. I think it was kind of washing me out a little bit. There you go. So the other side was a little dark, and I didn't even realize I didn't have my light on over there, but probably not a huge deal. Not like I'm filming for a other video right now, but and this one gets a little washed out. I have the garage door cracked over here, so the refrigerator and stuff is just because I have my hose kind of hanging out the door a little bit, so it doesn't, if it leaks, it's outside. Um, but yeah, let's see. We're about I did 11:17 is when we had this mash going. I'm going to stir this up again. I'm going to actually pull out an old keg that I had kicked. And as we're kind of going through this thing and letting it drain and stuff, I'm going to actually transfer a beer that I have sitting in my fermentation chamber too. So we'll do that throughout the process when we're boiling and everything today too. But let me pull out that keg real quick after I give it a stir around. Again, welcome if you're just joining us. We brewed up a spruce tip pale ale with some spruce tips that I got from the I think Montana mountains. Um, you can follow along. We'll have the recipe and stuff posted in the video description after this video. I don't have it posted in there right now, but I will have that up. If you're just joining us also and you want some stickers, email me cityscapebrew@gmail.com. I'll give you some stickers like this in the mail anywhere in the world. I will pay for the shipping. All I need is your name and your email address. You'll see that go across the screen on the bottom, and we'll go from there. Let me go ahead and give this a stir around. I'm gonna grab a different keg out of here too. So, but if you have any questions, throw them in the chat box. That's what it's all about, man. Ask some questions, and we'll answer your questions whether I can or not. I'll pretend to know, and I'll tell you. By the way, just because I had to move these out of the way, I wanted to share this with you. These the last one I had was that rad little thing from Sierra Nevada. They have this like hazy series coming out, and the one that I found at the store the other day was this Citra little thing, and so I picked up a 6 pack of it. I had one yesterday. It was actually really, really good. I liked the Rad a little bit better than this one, but man, Citra hops, I mean, can't go wrong with those. So I just figured this out and check this out. I'll have one today to share with you guys, but it's a limited hazy series that they do with the little thing line. It's pretty cool. Right, out with the old, in with the new. We are. I just kicked a sour, and I have my Czech lager that I did the Pilsner Urquell Cologne one that is in there. I have to taste it yet. It should be done about next week or so. So we'll see how that goes. I'm gonna have that video up. That one I did a triple decoction mash, so that's gonna be awesome. I have a different video that I'm coming up with a friend that I did an IPA called we're calling it beer pressure IPA, and then I also brewed a rye beer with a friend of mine. That those videos will also have some people in it. So like Enclave on here, I have a friend from South Africa. He's from South Africa. He's going to be on that video. So in a couple of weeks, he's going to come over. We're going to taste that this weekend. I think film that up, and then maybe I'll have it on Monday. That beer, the Czech lager, I think might be the one after that. So we'll see. Yo, Kurt, what's up, man? Welcome, welcome. Brew day went well. Stouts about done fermenting. 2 Hearted Ale just kicked off yesterday. I'll report back next live. Awesome, Ty. Cool, man. Yeah, let me know. I'm interested. That's always fun to do. Rich Hart says, you smoke meat? I got a Boston butt on right now. No, but you know what's funny that you mentioned that because I was actually thinking about getting a little bit of a little smoker. I've got like 2 Blackstones, a pizza oven. So I got a natural gas grill connection on that backyard. So I've got like 4 grills already. I don't really want another huge smoker, but they make them some pretty small, like upright smokers, even the electric ones and stuff that I think I might get into doing some of that. I had a really good smoked chicken at a buddy's house, and then he does his own like summer sausage and other stuff like that. That's really good. Um, he actually has a YouTube channel. It's called Cheeseology. He does meats and cheeses on that channel, and so he does. He also makes beer, but he's doing a channel on meats and cheeses. So if you like doing like blue cheese and cheddar and summer sausage and capicola and some other stuff. He's got a whole bunch of videos on doing that. So Cheeseology is his channel. His name's Adam. A moment for a dead keg. Yes, pour one out for my homie. I won't pour one out. I'll pour one in my mouth. Have you ever brewed an IPA with Simpson Golden Promise? Yes. If so, any hop combo recommendations? So I think the one I used Simpson malt was for a version of, let me see. I think it was the that's what it was. It was APA did one for, I think they did like a Sierra Nevada clone. Let me look. Uh, the American Homebrewers Association, AHA, did a big brew day, and that is in May. I think it was 2 years ago. So on my channel, I have that video. Let me find out what it is in Brewer's Friend though, because I have that one listed as well. Tools, recipes. Let me see. So I did that one. It is on my channel too, so I have it. I'll tell you what it is, but I will tell you what hops I used as well. It was a couple of years ago in May. Let's see what I got here. Maybe it was called, no, wasn't that one? Maybe it was the Slapped by Summer one that I did that with. No, that wasn't it. I brewed too many beers apparently, but I will find it for you real quick. It won't take me very long. The oh, that was my Sierra Nevada clone. That one had, that's just two row and Crystal 60, but I did add one on here. I'm trying to find it quick for you. Amber, no, it's, maybe it was more back further than I thought. Pale clone, smash beer. Maybe it was 3 years ago. Oh yeah, it was called Nearly Nirvana. It's 2023. 2023. So it was 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago now, in May. But the I did 2 row and 10 ounces of Simpson's Crystal Light. I think this is the one. Let me see if it is a Big Brew Day. Nearly Nirvana was a Big Brew recipe, and they used Simpson's Crystal Light, and they did all Cascade hops. I think they were trying to make like a Sierra Nevada type clone. That's why I thought of that, because I think it's all Cascade hops, and it is. And then they just used Lallemand BRY 97 West Coast Ale yeast. Let me see if I can find the recipe that's on the Big Brew Day website. It's called Nearly Nirvana. AHA. So if you search Nearly Nirvana AHA, let me see if I can share my screen here. Here we go. So this was it. It was Nearly Nirvana Pale Ale. It was 2023. They were kind of doing a spin on the again on what it would be Sierra Nevada's Pale Ale, but they don't have the same yeast that they use. I think the Omega's one that I'm using today, West Coast Ale 1, is the best one for that. But anyway, so here's the homebrew page. If you can go find it, anyone can find it. I'm a member, but anyone can get on this. But it says basically a half pound. I use 10 ounces. They use 8 ounces. 11 pounds of 2-row, 8 ounces Simpson's Crystal Light, and then the Cascade hops. And so this is pretty close to the one I had. They had mashing at 156 to 158. I think I lowered that. This is exactly what I'm talking about as far as like doing the higher mash temps. I like a more hoppy forward beer, so that would be different for me. But yeah, so that's the one I did. Nearly Nirvana is the one you want to look for on their website. Excuse me, you said Simpson's Golden Promise. I've also used Golden Promise also. I'd have to look through my recipes for that, but I can't even remember which one. But I did use a Simpsons brand. But Golden Promise is just like 2-row. So any other hops that you use with it, Golden Promise is their version of 2-row. It might be a little bit more, if I remember right, I think like a Pilsner or a standard 2-row is like 1.8 Lovabond or like 2 or under. And I think like the Golden Promise might be like 2 or 2.2 or something like that. So it's not much different, but it might be a little bit darker color by itself. So I would probably just add less adjunct type malts like really barely any crystal if you add any at all. Maybe like a quarter pound or something like that. I wouldn't add a half pound to that. I would even say less than that. Maybe you might even do like 6 ounces or something like that, just to give it a little bit of color or something, some complexity. But it's basically a 2 row uh, um, malt. See you soon. Thanks, Kurt. I appreciate you jumping on and spending some time with us. Busy with dinner. Sorry if I'm a bit here and there. Hey, no problem, Enclave, man. Glad you're always jumping on. You're one of the usuals, and you're staying up late most mornings, very early mornings when I'm doing them at night. So at least it's a time that you normally are up doing dinner. little better for you. It's only noon here, so we got about 15 minutes, or actually about 10, 12 minutes or so before the boil or before the mash ends. I'm going to give it one more stir around here. And one of the things that I have for my system is a pulley for pulling this thing up out of the grain basket out. It is kind of a pain in the butt. They get kind of heavy, especially with 13 pounds or so of grain, which is what I'm using today. I'm also going to pull my yeast out of the fridge. I forgot to do that. So this is the yeast we're using. We'll let this start warming up. West Coast Ale 1 from Omega. These packs are fairly new, November 3rd. So unless they're like 4 months or more, you don't necessarily have to make a starter. I picked this up yesterday, or I probably would have made one anyway. I like making starters for most things, but for these packets, they're pretty good. They actually put a lot more yeast in these now, and even White Labs started putting more yeast in their packets. I like to give this a good shake around and get the yeast off the bottom. Get it all stirring up as it's warming up. That's why I kind of pinch it and I fold the bottom a little bit. So I like pinch it up off of the bottom, and then I shake it up, get it all in suspension while it's warming up. But then I'll shake this every once in a while. But we'll just leave this kind of hang out here off to the side and go from there. We're also going to start measuring out our hop additions. And after I get this pulley down, so as I'm draining this thing and letting this kind of chill for a little while, I'm gonna measure out my hops. We only really have two. It's Citra and Mosaic, so pretty easy. We'll do a Mosaic at 60 minutes, two rounds of Citra, one at 10 minutes, and then one at 1 minute. But along with that 1 minute, we'll do another ounce of Mosaic. So we're doing Citra and Mosaic at 1 minute left in the boil, basically flame out. A 10-minute Citra addition, and then 60 minutes of Mosaic. And then the spruce tips will also go in at 10 minutes. So at 10 minutes, we're going to have the spruce tips. We're going to have the at both rounds of or one round of Citra hops, and then after that, both of them again. So let me get that pulley set up. All right, this thing just makes it so much easier when you get a system like this to pull it up. And I just kind of let it sit and suspend. They do make these little like um, legs for the holding the basket up once you pull it out of there, but it is not as convenient as using that. And I can just let that hang on there until I'm ready to pull it off. And then I will set it back on onto a bucket so it can drain the last little bit out as we're doing this. I also like to add a firm cap S. So I need to let that warm up. I keep that in the fridge as well. Can't read the bottle, but it's firm cap S is a little product they put in to help prevent boilovers and both when you add hops, some portion of the boil, but also as the boil starts getting up to a boil, it'll help prevent boilovers. I add this every single time that I brew, just to kind of help with that. It also helps during fermentation too, I guess. as you for crowds and blow offs and all that kind of stuff. You don't add very much, just like a little squirt, a little teaspoon, and that's it. I came in late. Could you recap the recipe you're doing today? Absolutely. Absolutely. Good time to do it anyway. We're just about to pull out the mash. We'll talk about the grains and everything. So it's called just the tip, or just the spruce tip, I should say. Spruce tip IPA, or not IPA, pale ale, American pale ale. It is not as high IBUs as I normally would for an IPA. So I guess it's kind of in between. It's a little bit higher for a pale ale, but a little bit less. So I guess you could call it an IPA. We are using 11 pounds of Pilsner malt, and then a half pound of each Dark Munich, Vienna, and Carapils. This recipe will be underneath after I get done doing the video today and saving this, and it gets up on the website. I'll link a link to a Google Drive where you can download this PDF for yourself. Then I'll have Mosaic, Citra, and Citra and Mosaic basically for the hops, but I'm going to do it at 60 minutes Mosaic, 2 rounds of Citra at 10, and then flame out, and then another ounce of Mosaic at flame out also. And then we're putting in an addition of 5 ounces of spruce tips with 10 minutes left in the boil. I'm also going to be adding some spruce tips during high krausen of primary fermentation to give a little bit different flavor, that it's going to add a little bit of a piney notes. And then I'm using this West Coast Ale 1, which is kind of like that Sierra Nevada-ish yeast, if you will. It gives a little bit more of like a fruity, citrusy flavor than using like a USO5. But you definitely could use like a USO5 or 001 or something like that from White Labs if you wanted to be a little bit more neutral and clean. I named mine Spruce Willis in honor of my favorite Christmas movie, Die Hard. Awesome. I love it, Brewing Bad. That's awesome. I came in late. Could you I just read that one. Just checking to see how citrus or cruise was, Joe Mack says. Are you ready to go again? I don't know. I like cruises. They're every couple of years for me type of thing. I like doing like a trips to like Europe or overseas, or even like I went to Wyoming in June. That was really cool. Something way different. I'd rather go walk around, see places, eat places, drink places than be on a boat for several days. Even though we did stop at some really cool places, it was fun. The boat was really nice. The stops we did were San Juan, Puerto Rico. We did St. Thomas, and we did one of their private islands, Princess K Island, I did a Princess Cruise Line. Princess Cruise Lines themselves, the boat was immaculately awesome. The medallions you use walking around, like they know who you are as you go up to like the bar, and like you can order a drink for you and your wife, and they see your picture as you like walk up to them. It's crazy. So that was really cool. What I didn't like about Princess Cruise Lines, and this is just me being picky, is that I was probably the youngest person on the boat. It was geared a little bit more towards the retired folks, or maybe it's just the time of year when, I have no idea. But there wasn't a very big pool. We did bring our kids, so we had my cousins and nephews, or not my cousins, my nephew and niece, and my brother, my parents, and everybody else went there. We all had an awesome time. It was very fun. I don't want to say anything bad about Princess. That's just more of their market. And some people enjoy not having kids run around like a Disney cruise. Like, I get it. So maybe that's up your alley. But the free drink we got the Princess Premier package where you get the unlimited drinks and stuff. We ate at a bunch of awesome specialty restaurants. Super good. So I'm not knocking that. I would just rather, for the money you spend on going on any cruise, really, you could go to Europe. I mean, and see, my next trip over to Europe, I really want to do is like Ireland, and parts of the UK. Probably go down, either that or doing like some portions of Italy, do Rome and Pisa and Venice and some other places like that. So we'll see. I mean, for the price you pay for doing that, you could really get out of your wheelhouse but if sitting on the boat drinking some fruity drinks around a pool is your thing, that is 100% what you do on those. So that's awesome. I mean, it was fun. It's just for me, it's like every couple of years I'll do one, and I like doing them. It's just not something I do every year or anything. Jeremy, thanks for stopping on, man. We'll talk soon. Go have fun with the wife. It is New Year's. Started off right. I named, you named your Spruce Willis. Okay, so I think I'm caught up on all of it. Did I miss any up here? Nope, I don't think so. Okay, cool. We're right about end of mash here. Actually, we got 1 minute left. That's perfect timing. I'm going to go ahead and start pulling this out. So if you're just joining us, feel free to send me an email. It'll see it scrolling at the bottom of the screen here soon. Cityscapebrew@gmail.com. I'll send you some free stickers. They won't be mangled like this one. They'll be nice ones. And free stickers in the mail, no matter where you live in the U.S. or excuse me, in the world. I will send them to you. It doesn't have to be just in the U.S. We're doing Spruce Tip Pale Ale today with some fresh spruce tips that I got from Montana. These things are awesome. They smell amazing, by the way. If you've never smelled spruce tips, you definitely need to do this. It's like they're sweeter. They're not just pine trees, you know? They're like a sweeter aroma. They're really, really good. All right, let's get this thing pulled off. And then we will let this drain out real good and we'll weigh out those hops. I've got Mosaic and Cascade that we're going to weigh out. So give me any questions that you have, leave them in the chat. And appreciate everybody jumping on. Hopefully everybody had an awesome Christmas and a happy New Year. And let me go ahead and get this thing out of here. We're going to start our boil after it gets done draining, and we'll go from there. Leave any questions you have in the chat. So to do this, I shut off the heat and I shut off the recirculation when I do this. And then I shut off the front valve so nothing leaks out. And I shut off my pump as well, so we get that nothing comes out of the hoses as I take off the lid here. You can't quite see that. You can a little bit in that smaller camera on the top over there. There is a T valve on the top of my pump, and I show that in my video I just did for the pump mount, and it's really easy just to grab that now. I don't have to reach down on the shelf underneath here. I can just reach over and shut those off right here. So I have a T valve. One goes to my lid, and the other one's going to go to my recirculating through my chiller later, so I don't have to touch any of the hot hoses and all that kind of stuff later until it cools off. So it's really nice to have that T put on that pump too, so you don't just have one out. It allows you to have two. So go check that video out if you haven't watched that. All right, we're gonna raise it up slowly. You don't want to really just pull because that water has to get through that basket. So you just kind of pull it up a little bit at a time. Oh, I had something stuck there. There it goes. Start pulling that out of there, letting that drain out real good. All right, now that it's above the water, I'm just going to kind of let it chill right there for a little while. Let this drain really, really nicely through there. You don't want to leave a lot of volume or liquid in there. This is the most sugary stuff that you're going to get out of the whole batch, is the stuff that's like lastly falling off these grains. And so I could have gave it one little stir up at the end. I think it'll be all right. But what I'm going to do right now is actually take and then drain out the stuff that's in the hoses, and I'll be able to put the basket where I'm going to get the last little bit of runnings after I pull it off this too. So let me grab a bucket quick. All right. So this is I got a little bit out of the hose, basically the stuff that comes from the front. You can't see right just below the camera there. I just get the stuff that's left over in the hose and I put it in the bucket. Then I take this and I put it over the bucket so it can drain out for a little bit. And then after this gets really good and drained out of there, I will actually pour what I had in that bucket. That's all sanitized, of course, back into my boiling or my boil kettle here. So I can add that back in because that's just good, sweet volume that'll help with your efficiency. So In the meantime, let this thing go for a second. I'm going to weigh out our hops again, Cascade and Mosaic hops, or Citra and Mosaic hops. One sec. All right, I got my little cups here. I use these little plastic cups. They work perfectly for about an ounce or so or two of hops. And so we're going to get my measurements here to ounces. And I use all the equipment, by the way, that I use is on my Amazon thing in the video description. So if you're wondering, like, hey, what scale do I use? What temperature probe do I use? Other things that you see me do around here, I have my refractometer, which will take a refractometer reading. All that stuff is in my Amazon link in the thing. It doesn't cost you any more to do that. It just helps out the channel if you do buy it through there. So if you're going to do something anyway and you want to see what I use and know that it works because I've tested it, go ahead and use my link in the uh, video description to my Amazon store, and that will show everything I use for brewing, including even the Clayhammer system and everything will be in there. So if you're worried about like pH meters or anything else that I've ever done, is going to be listed in there. So go check it out, including some of my camera equipment and setup and stuff. So it's all in there. Let me grab my Mosaic and Citra. I just have a few ounces of Mosaic here to use up. I did actually have to go and get some Citra hops, which I didn't have. I have some whole cone ones, but I didn't want to mess with that, especially when I'm adding spruce tips and stuff. So I will use that when I do all whole cone hops, like when I use my other hops that I have for that I grew, but I'm not going to use them until then. And so I'll use the Citra for some recipe when I use my other hops that I grew in my backyard. So first we'll do the Citra because it's easier because this is just 2 ounces. I'm just going to make 2 ounce additions of those quick. Grab a little scissors and knock something off my shelf over there. Sounds like it's a good trip. Yes, it was a good trip, Ty. It was fun. It was I don't knock it. I just say if I had to prefer one thing or the other, I would just do some traveling somewhere else. Just me. All right, there's one. 2 ounces of Citra. Done. Now I have 2 ounces of Mosaic. Again, I got a lot of Mosaic hops. One of my favorite hops, by the way. Mosaic doesn't get enough love, but it is good, a good hop. So is Chinook. I will say Chinook is good. Is a good hop. I don't that one doesn't get as much love either. And that's one of those ones that I did with the cold IPA was a really good one. The Chinook hops. All right, let's see what I got here. Oh my god, these things smell so darn good. I wish you guys could smell through the camera because these things are amazing. So good. All right, Mosaic. 1 ounce. By the way, vacuum sealing is the way to go. By the way, if you ever get like a bunch of hops like this, make sure you vacuum seal them so you have a bunch. This one had I need to put it in a new package. This one had a little bit of a leak, but at least it gets most of the oxygen out of there. Oxygen will dry out your pellet hops. So make sure that if you are going to store a bunch of pellets like I do, I make sure I put them in vacuum sealer bags like this. They work awesome and you will never have to worry about it. They will last for years in there. All right, so we got that going. And then let's weigh out our spruce tips while we're here as well. So let me grab those as well. And we're going to use a bowl for those because they are larger. And I'll show you what they look like after they kind of get all unpuffed from the package here. I will vacuum seal the rest of these that I don't use. I have some that are vacuum sealed already, but I put I think about what I'm going to use today. So I'm using 5 ounces in the, 5 ounces in these 10 minutes left in the boil. So I want to make sure I tear that. Put 5 ounces. And there are chunks and pieces, and that's okay. We're going to be using a hop spider for this thing. So it's not like I'm just throwing them in there without anything. They are a little bit frozen too. So, adding just a hair more than 5 ounces isn't probably the end of the world. Oop, got a little bit more. Okay, so let me show you what these spruce tips look like. They're awesome. There's little chunks and pieces, but they basically look like this. Like they pull this little guy off the top of the growth as the spruce tree is growing. And let me grab a little bit, put it back in the bag because I grabbed a little too much. So I'm putting about 5.1 ounces in there because there's some melting happening from the condensation and stuff that's on here. All right, now we got those are the spruce tips. So you can see there's a little bit of condensation stuff on there, so that'll kind of boil off. But the spruce tips themselves, those are little pieces. They freeze them so they break apart, but that's no big deal. They're all going to go in there, and then we're going to put them in again a hop spider, so it won't have any of those little needles and stuff. And then when I add them into the primary, I'm going to be putting them in a paint strainer bag like I would for hops anyway, so it catches all that kind of stuff, but still lets the liquid flow in and out of the spruce tips. So we'll put the rest of these back in the freezer. That's how you want to store them, in the freezer. That's how you get them. You get them kind of in a container with some cold packs in there to keep them as cold as they can when they ship to you. So throw those guys in there. We got our spruce tips, we got our citra hops, we got our mosaic hops, and we are ready for the boil. We also got our firm cap S that's warming up here. I keep that in the fridge as well. And then we have yeast nutrient that we'll also add at the end of the boil, and so a Whirlfloc tablet that I have, but we'll get those in a minute. So next we have our basket. It is now drained pretty well. I'm going to pull it off to a bucket, let it drain a little bit more. We're going to start heating up our wort though, and we're going to get this up to a boil. And I'll show you how I do that. I do it a little bit differently on the clay hammer than some people do. So I'll show you a little trick that I use. But let me grab this basket off this thing, and then we'll start heating this thing up. Yeah, I can hear the bucket. I don't think you guys can. I can hear the bucket, and it's like still draining pretty well out of there, even though I picked it completely up. Just by tilting it off to the side and putting it on a bucket, it's draining quite a bit of liquid off of those things still. So I'll pour those in there in a minute. I just like to see where I'm at for volume wise too, which I'm right at about 7.5 gallons, which is actually a little more. And that's why the thing was so full. I'm at about a quarter gallon more than I want to be. I want to be at about 7.2 gallons generally when I boil. And so this is a little higher than I normally would have it, but that's no big deal. Which need to boil a little bit longer than to get to our original gravity, but we'll check it out. We'll see where we're at. So for right now, I'm going to add the heat back on, but I'm going to add, that's my pump, sorry, heat back on, and then we're going to go up to a boil. But the way I do it is not by adding this or raising this to 212 like I normally would. What I do is I hold this, well, after let me just do this. I hold this AM button, which stands for auto or manual. I go to the manual setting, and right now it's at 63%, because that's about where I have it during the boil. But for now, to help it get up really fast, I turn that up to 100%. And what this will do essentially is put 100% of the energy to the element right now to heat this up as quickly as it can to get it to a boil. And this is a 240 volt version, so it's going to do it pretty quick. And then when it gets to a boil and I start seeing it starting to really get rapid boil, I'll turn this down the same way to 63%. So it will just kind of keep it at that steady boil rather than trying to boil too hard. The temperature gauge in there is actually pretty decent for mash temperature, but as you get closer to a boil, you'll notice that it sometimes will be like it'll start boiling at like 208 or 205 or something. It's a little less consistent as far as the temperature is up here. So I like to do the percentage thing. It helps to just keep it at a nice boil anyway. So it doesn't try and boil too hard if I have it set to a different degree. So anyway, just a little tip that I do, but you don't have to do it that way. It's just something I do. Um, Once the basket gets done completely draining, um, then I'm going to pour in the rest of it before I take my hydrometer reading. So I do want to do a hydrometer reading, see where we're at efficiency wise. I take one almost every time I brew just for my own purposes. I don't always share it on my videos, but I do it just to see where I'm at efficiency wise so I can adjust my recipes as I put them into Brewer's Friend in the future. And that's more important, as you get a new system like the claw hammer or something like that. So I'm going to get this pulley out of the way quick. Again, ask any questions. I'm kind of ignoring the chat if you have any, but if you have any questions, we'll get back to that in just a few minutes as this thing kind of gets up to a boil. And then we got some time to kill, and I'll be transferring a beer from one of my kegs into a fermenter, or excuse me, from a fermenter into a keg so I can get that into the fridge and do some other stuff. So ask any questions that you got, and we'll be there in just a moment. Let me wrap it a few minutes out. All right. I just rinse off my basket, by the way. Don't wait to do that. Do that right away. It is super, super hard to clean if you let that dry on there and get all nasty. So as soon as you dump your basket, clean it up. It's just the best way to do it. Let me shut that garage door a minute. All right. We'll have to crack that in a little bit just to let some of the heat out of here, but we'll let it warm up in here a little bit. All right. So as we're getting up, we're at about 155 degrees or so. It's climbing towards a boil. We're gonna add a little bit of this firm cap S in here before it gets up to a boil anyway. Basically said, like I said, like a teaspoon or so, just a couple drops. That's all it really needs. That'll help break up the bubbles and to make it less viscosity, so the bubbles break easier. And I'm also going to take a hydrometer reading. I don't have my medicine dropper, so I'm going to grab another one of those. All right, then I'm just going to take a little sample after I stirred it up, and we'll see where we are gravity wise, and whether we hit what our expected gravity would be. Again, I'm a little less concerned about this one, and I think it's going to be a little off because I have a higher volume than normal as it's warming up here. Yeah, it's saying it's like 8.75. And excuse me, 7.75. I was like, did I read that wrong? Yes, I did. 7.75. I need to be about 7.2. So I'm expecting that this original gravity will be quite a bit off. And if that's the case, what I might do is let it boil for an extra like 10 minutes. So I won't add my 60-minute addition for a little bit. And that is to help boil off a little bit more of that volume. And we'll kind of see where we're at. I don't want to add the hops right away and just make it more bitter. So I'm going to probably boil for a little bit and wait. If you're ever a little high, that's always something you can do. You should know kind of where your boil volume should be. It says on my brewer's friend about 7.4, but I like to be at about 7.2 ish. And so anything under 7.5, I would have been fine. I'm going to boil it for another 10 minutes just to make sure that volume gets down. And that's going to really depend on where I'm at efficiency wise. So let's put it in our refractometer here. This is going to tell us what our what I like to call starting gravity is, and then I have original gravity, which is what I call, I know that's interchangeable for some people, what I call the kind of post-boil gravity, and then you have a post-fermentation or final gravity, and those are all on my brew day sheets. So if you are a channel member, you get copies of my brew day sheets, and you can take a log, and I'll show those in a second. All right, so my pre-boil gravity was supposed to be 1.049. And it is at 1.045. So I'm correct. It's a little bit low. I think that extra boiling will help, and it has to do with just having extra volume in there. I don't think my efficiency is all that bad, which should be a little bit between about 75% ish. I think I have it on here as like 72. And I used to get like 80 or above for my batch sparge, but at a homebrew scale, that's really not that much of a difference in grain. At a brewery level, it would be a larger difference in grain. Charles, man, what's up? Happy New Year. Yeah, it's been a little bit of a month hiatus. I talked a little bit about that earlier in the live stream. Glad you could jump on, man. How are you? That's awesome. The misses you plan a retirement cruise this spring. That's cool. Good for you guys. You deserve it after working your whole life to go do something else. That's always a That's always a fun time. I always tell people, some people work too late in their lives or whatever to enjoy retirement. Man, you worked your whole life. Go enjoy it. Go do what you want to do. I mean, if working is what you want to do, great. But if you don't, like most people, then go do what you want to do. That's awesome. Appreciate you jumping on today. What's on the brew list, Patrick asked. I have a bunch of stuff on the brew list. I have a bunch of stuff that's done that I still have to get on the channel. So I have three beers that are basically finishing up or done that I need to get on the channel. So I have uh, uh, an IPA that I did for my fantasy draft beer, which we talked about a couple of times during my other lives. I have that one. I have a beer that I had to use rye for what they're calling the top of the hops competition. So that one we're judging at the Noda Brewing Company in February. So that'll be after that. I have a Czech lager that I did a triple decoction mash on. That is done. It is actually the keg I just moved in and will put on tap. I have not tasted that yet. I'm excited to do that. It's been lagering for quite a while, so that's good. And then I have a spruce tip, of course, that's going on right now. So just the spruce tip, we're calling it. That's what we're brewing right now, and that should be pretty good. That's going to be, you know, those mosaic and citra hops paired with some spruce aroma, which these spruce tips are amazing. They look really, really good. Again, these little pieces are just the little tips that they cut off the top of each of the trees and the limbs as they're growing. They're just these little tiny little. They will become full branches eventually, but they cut them off. Um, There'll be extensions of branches anyway, but they cut them off and they put them in beer. And a long time ago, these used to be one of the things that they used for bittering and preservation in beer a long time ago, along with like juniper berry or juniper and some other things. Before they had hops were very plentiful, and so once hops became plentiful, of course those were better and had a better flavor, aroma, that kind of thing. But man, these spruce tips smell really, really good. So that's awesome. So I'm gonna add 5 ounces of those, and then another 3.5 ounces of those also in my um, fermenter, actually. So we're gonna try to do both. So that's gonna be pretty interesting. Okay, we're starting to boil here. You can't see it on the camera, but it's on the other side. So we're gonna start turning this thing down. What I need to do is push my down arrows here to get to 63%. And that's about where I leave it. And I want to make sure I keep an eye on it because it will raise up. If I need to, I'll shut off the heat. So that's starting to get up there. We're going to give it an extra 10 minutes once it starts boiling pretty rapidly. It hasn't quite got there yet, but it will get there. So you can see it's almost, my temperature reading right here says like 201, and it hasn't quite got to 212 yet. But I think this temperature gauge sometimes can be a little bit off, sometimes not. But that's why I like to use the percentage setting on the claw hammer. One thing I'm going to do is, well, this thing's boiling, or one thing I wanted to talk about was, oh, what was it? I was just thinking of something to bring up that everybody should know about when they're brewing this thing. I can't remember. It'll come to me in a minute. But the I was gonna mention something that was on my Amazon store that I use for this. There's a hop spider thing that I made, but that's not on there. I make that. It's a DIY video, but that wasn't what wasn't what I was going to add. But I am going to be using two different versions of a hop spider, and these are on there. So once this thing gets up to a boil, I'm going to be using this larger hop spider. This is the one that comes with the claw hammer, so you can see the difference. One's about 4 inches, which is the smaller one, but it's a little bit longer. Okay, and then you have this one, which is a 6-inch one, but this will hold a lot more volume of hops. So for the pellet hops, I'm going to add this because it has a little bit better surface area for the hop pellets to get out of the, without getting really kind of clogged up in here. They do a little bit, but not too bad. But for the spruce tips, I'm going to be putting them in here carefully. So what I'll probably end up doing for this one is leave this out of the boil and then add the spruce tips in here so I can carefully pull them in there without dumping them in and spilling inside of the beer. And then I'm going to use this for the spruce tips themselves. So spruce tips, hops. I probably could add it all in the same, but we'll see where we're at. Maybe I don't even need to use this other one, but we'll see. I just wanted to give it more surface area because the hops will kind of clog the sides of this up, and I want to make sure I get that spruce aroma and stuff out. So I'll probably put it in this anyway. So let me put the hop spider in. And then that'll keep boiling. And we're going to set a timer now for 10 minutes because I'm going to boil a little bit longer than I was planning on doing because of the higher volume and a little bit off for the pre-boil gravity. So we're at 1245. We're going to go at till 1255 before we add our um, first round of hops. So let's go ahead and do that. I got my hops sitting here, and they smell so good. Mosaic hops are one of my favorites. So good. So I got Citra, and then I've got my Mosaic hops. Or excuse me, Citra hops. These smell citrusy. I mean, these are crazy how citrusy they smell. But I like the aroma of Mosaic almost better. And then, so I've got Citra, and then I've got 2 ounces of one of each at the end of the boil. So just want to I always kind of put them in order in front of me here. So I know which one I'm kind of grabbing next without having to guess and look at like the color differences or pellet size differences, because sometimes you get them mixed up. So I'll put them all kind of together. In addition to that, I'm going to be adding a Whirlflock tablet. So if you haven't used those before, these are like basically like using Irish moss. You probably heard that term. They basically help with clarification of your beer, clarifying and stuff. But you add one of these things towards the end of the boil, 10 minutes left, and it helps kind of separate some of those proteins and stuff in your boil. So those are also going in at 10 minutes. So I'll grab one of the tablets out there. They basically just look like this, but as soon as they drop them in, they will disperse, and you won't have to worry about them sitting in there. And then I have a tablespoon of yeast nutrient. I'm also going to add at that same time. Which I needed another little cup for. So gonna use the yeast nutrient. This stuff I can't remember. This is the white variety of yeast nutrient. I bought the actual other stuff for this as well, which is, do I have the packet here? Yeah, a lot of people will use this other stuff. I haven't used this before, but I see this on a lot of other ones. They're the Fermax. Helps promote quick onset of and complete fermentation, 1 teaspoon per gallon. So I usually add like a tablespoon of this stuff. But that's like this kind of, it's like a yellowish powder. It's hard to tell in there. It's like a yellowish powder versus like these are more of like crystals, almost look like salt crystals. They're like the white variety. I don't think it really matters all that much. Um, which one you use. The both are teaspoon per gallon, but I'm gonna, just because I haven't opened this package yet, I'm gonna use the one I've always used, and then I'm gonna switch to this other stuff, and I'll see if I can tell any difference. I don't think so, but we'll see. All right, let's get back to the chat. See what you guys are up to. I haven't looked through here in a little bit. Let's see what's going on. I ruined a pills the other day. I got a smaller version of the brew system I use. Boil rate is about a fourth of the bigger unit, so a 90-minute boil turned into a 4 hour boil. Wow! Even though I pulled the hops, and it's bitter as f. Wow. Well, that'll happen. Learning experience. You just chalk that up to now experience points. Happy New Year to all, Charles. Yep, that's awesome. I got that one already. I saw. Where did you get the stand for the controller of the claw hammer supply? That's awesome. I made this. It's just a 4x4 post basically, and then I have some 2x4s at the bottom, and so it's literally just one 4x4, and then I have 2x4s that are length to each side, so it makes 4 legs that go out on the bottom. I like it. This I would normally, if I was brewing by myself and I wasn't filming and doing all this kind of stuff, I would either put this thing on the table next to me, or I would just have it on the wall, and I would actually probably have all of my brewing stuff up against the wall, and I would just hang it on there because there are brackets on the back to hang this thing. So on the 4x4, I just put a little wood, like a small piece of plywood, and then I have bolts that go through that to hold this. So you can hang this on any wall. They already come with the holes in the back of the unit to be able to do that. But I like it because in my videos, I'm able to kind of turn around and you can see it right above the unit in a shot. And that's kind of why I like to do it that way. But you don't have to do it that way. It is easier. So that's nice. We read Hoppy Red in the kegerator and American Brown in the fermenter, and more grain than I know what to do with. Awesome. What But a Vienna and a hazy are in planning. Nice, Charles. I have a good Vienna recipe on the channel that I made a couple of years ago in place of everybody else was doing like a Munich, or excuse me, a Marzen. I keep saying Munich because I went to Munich, Germany, and that's about where all that stuff's kind of from for Oktoberfest. But I did a Vienna lager, and that one turned out pretty good. It's kind of a good alternative for a multi style beer. Um, and very similar to a Marzen, except for a Marzen, I think is a little more on the multi side, and a Vienna might have a little bit more of a hoppy. But I think they're so comparable to me. They're not even neither one of them are what I would consider hoppy. So they're both very good. I like a good Vienna lager. It's hard to find a good one in a it's hard to find a good one in a like a uh craft brewery because they won't have one until like the fall or something like that. So it's good to have one for the spring while you're brewing it yourself. Upslope Brewing in Boulder, Colorado has a Spruce Tip IPA. Not a bad brew. I will have to try yours. Looks awesome. Yeah, thank you, man. I will again put the place where I bought these Spruce Tips. You can get it from there, basically anywhere else. But if you want to brew the same one, but I'm gonna also do a follow-up video since I've never done one of these. I'm gonna see how it turns out, and then I'll let you know if I want to change something or something in the recipe. So I'll do a follow-up video for this as well. And then yeah, sorry. I'm trying to organize all my stuff. With all my computer stuff on the table here, I have less room to put all the beer brewing stuff that I need to actually brew with. And I do need a beer because I've been out for like a hot minute here. So let me grab one of those. This Two Hearted Ale is going to show you how to do this, but this one's warmed up, so I'm going to grab a different one. All right, I'll open that in a second. Let me open the garage door just a little bit, just so the steam can help get out of here in a minute, and then we are a couple minutes away, 2 minutes, actually about 2.5 minutes away from dumping in our first round of hops. All right, I don't want to wash out the light too much, but it might be a little brighter in here because I have to keep this door open. Maybe I can put some stuff in front of the door at the bottom and make it a little less bright. Let me see what I can do. There, that's a little better, but not crazy. Oh well, we'll figure it out later. So anywho, we have 2 minutes. We're gonna add our first round of hops. Again, we're putting in Mosaic and Citra. We're using Mosaic hops for bittering. You could use either one. Citra, I have more Mosaic, so I'm just using Mosaic. Either one is not a flavor difference at bittering. I think you could use really any hop you wanted for bittering, but they choose to use like the higher alpha acids hops just because they have they will bitter better. I like to use Magnum for almost all my bittering hops, but since I have so much Mosaic and I was using Mosaic anyway, I just threw some of these in here, and it is like about 11 AA for this bag, and so the alpha acids will contribute to that. Junction Point Brewing in the house. What's up, man? Happy New Year. AZZJ97's in the house also. New to brewing here. This video is so informative. Much appreciation, brother. I'm doing a red ale. Any tips? Awesome, man. Welcome. Glad to have you as part of the brewing community, man. I do this live thing every couple of weeks. I haven't done one in like a month, so I don't want to lie and say I do it every other week, but I try to. So I'll be on a more regular schedule this time of year, and a lot more videos coming out. And that's what this live sessions and stuff like this are all about. I don't always brew a beer during the live sessions. I a lot of times just sit and we just kind of shoot the shit a little bit, have a beer, talk brew shop, and ask questions. And that's what it's all about. If you haven't, by the way, shoot me an email. I'll send you some free stickers in the mail, like this one. It won't be all bent up, and it'll be nice ones. I need your name and your mailing address, cityscapebrew@gmail. It'll scroll across the bottom of the screen too. But really, just practice and watch a bunch of videos. I have a whole video on a brew day that's like 40 minutes long. It's like 37 minutes long or 47 minutes long or something like that. I highly suggest watching a video like that, depending on what type of system you're using, because that one goes through like what's happening during every stage of the brew process. And the reason I do it that way is because I had to watch a bunch of different places to kind of before I felt comfortable with all grain brewing or even extract brewing. I have an extract brewing kit video as well, if that's what you're doing. I don't know if you're doing a extract beer kit at first or you're doing all grain, but either way is just learn what you can, ask questions. There's no such thing as a dumb question. So feel free to ask them in here. I'm happy to help out any way I can. All right, 12:55, exactly. We're going to throw in our hops, first round of mosaic hops going into the hop spider. And we start our 60-minute timer. We did boil for a few minutes extra because our volume was a little high. So normally you would add that right as boiling starts to happen. But in this case, I am boiling a few extra minutes just to get that volume down. So that's our bittering hops that will add all the kind of bitterness to our beer. Most of our other hop additions are going to be towards the end, 10 minutes or less in the boil, and that will be our flavor aroma style hops. So that's what's going to give you the, when you smell it, put it up to your nose, that's what's going to give you those at the end of the boil. And since this is a spruce tip ale, it's those spruce tips also. All right, we're gonna crush this two-hearted now that we got some time to kill here. And again, that was 12:55 for our hour. I'm going to write that down so I remember where we're at for times. Okay, now give this a little stir around. And now I'm going to show you how I do these harvesting of the Bell's Two Hearted thing that Ty was talking about a little bit earlier in the thread. So this bottle from Bell's has a little bit of yeast on the bottom of the bottle right here, right? It's really hard to see. So I'm going to put my phone up, see if I can, or do I have a, yes, I do. Better yet, I have a cool light that is sideways. So in this bottle, there is yeast, and most of this yeast is, you can see it right there. See the yeast? All that stuff on the bottom looks like snow is yeast at the bottom of this bottle. And so it's crystal clear. You don't want to shake this thing up as you take it out of the refrigerator. Now, this yeast is good to drink. So when I drink one, just normally when I'm not trying to harvest the yeast, I will just use that. And just dump it in and not really worry if I get the yeast in there because it's actually a good tasting yeast. And now I need to find a bottle opener. Here we go. So we're going to pop this guy. And then what you do is you slowly pour this guy out without getting any of the yeast off the bottom. And I want to spill my keyboard and stuff, so I'm going to do it back here. And right as you start seeing that kind of sludgy stuff kind of come up towards the bottom, you stop. So now you have a nice clear beer in this one. You can dump this in here, which I probably will at the end anyway, because I'm not harvesting this today. But what you can do is then take this little slurry. Let me see if I can start this again. And it's now all on the bottom, and you just shake that up and get it all off the bottom. And you pour this guy into a little what I like to do is like use like a little tiny pint-sized mason jar, like a little tiny one, and you can put a stir plate on it. You don't have to, and you make a small starter, like a cup worth of starter, and then you pour these guys in there. And I usually drink a couple of these. You only need like 2 or 3 bottles, but you know, drink a 6-pack, you feel good too. But basically, you have the more yeast you can get in that little tiny starter to begin with, the more you can kind of propagate that starter up, and then you can, after a couple of days, like 2 or 3 days, you can ramp it up to a liter starter, and then you can actually use the yeast from Bell's Brewery in making a Bell's Two Hearted Ale. I have a whole video on how to do that, how to harvest yeast. Go check it out. So I'm actually going to pour this yeast actually in there. You can kind of see how it changes. You see how cloudy it is? This yeast is actually really good tasting yeast, so I don't mind pouring it in there. Some people don't like it. Some people do. I love it. It's awesome. It's what makes their beer, to be honest with you. It's not because it's in the bottles, it's because of how it tastes when it ferments, but having a little bit in your beer, not bad also. All right, so that's that guy, and cheers down the hatch. I will say, when you brew with this yeast and it's fresh like that, and they use all Centennial hops in Bell's Two Hearted Ale, and you use Centennial hops, man, it is hard to tell the difference between the two beers. I've done side by sides with multiple of their beers. Oberon Ale, which is my first all grain brew video, actually uses Oberon Ale recipe. It's a wheat ale. That one but it's just the brewing principles in general. You don't have to, brew that beer specifically, but you can watch that video if you're new. But that beer is the same yeast in that beer as everything else, and I use that harvested yeast for that. So you can go check that video out if you want to. It's pretty awesome. George in the house, or maybe it's Jorge. I don't know how you pronounce that. George probably. I made a imperial stout today or yesterday, but missed the pre-boil original gravity by almost 15 points. My first time making a high gravity beer. Would you boil longer next time? What could have fixed it? Good question. So yes, you could have boiled longer to reduce the volume. If your volume was correct, like say you were supposed to end at 5 gallons and you ended at 5 gallons, then it is an efficiency thing. And so that's easy to adjust, and I'll tell you how in a second. If you were high and you had 6 gallons or 5.5 gallons, or you had more than 5 gallons, that's probably why you were 15 points off. So you could have boiled it more to get that gravity down. So one thing you can do with a refractometer like this one, George in English, yes. Yeah, Jorge, I guess, would be spelling it like R George, the way that it's pronounced. I'm sorry. So from Guatemala, awesome. So if you use a hydrometer like this one, you could actually, while it's boiling like it is now, you could actually reach in, grab a little medicine dropper like this one, and you can actually like go in and actually take a little bit of sample out, see where you're at after it cools down a little bit, right? Cool that down. Put on your refractometer, see where you're at. If you need to boil it longer, boil it longer. The hard part about that is if you've added a bunch of hops that are supposed to be towards the end, those will get more bitter the longer they're in there. So you don't want to do that long, but if you wanted to go an extra 5 minutes or something, it's probably not the end of the world. But in some cases, you would rather be lower than your volume and hit your gravity than be higher. But either way, you're going to make great beer. It doesn't really matter. Now, to change that in the future, if your volume was correct at the end, right? So say you ended with 5 gallons and you're in your fermenter, you measured it. Like I use these plastic fermenters back here called Fur Monsters. They actually have markings on the back where 5 gallons is, 6 gallons, 7 gallons, etc. This is a 7-gallon one. They're awesome. I have 3 of them. You should definitely get those. They're great. But I would read on here, if you're at 5 gallons, you hit it perfect, right? But if if that's the case, then what you do is on your recipe, wherever you're getting your recipes from. So like I use Brewer's Friend. You can change when you edit it. You can change the recipe for the efficiency. It says right here. And I have mine at 72%. Somebody may have put a recipe out that you use that says it's 80%, right? And that's great if you have a system that gets that high of efficiency, but when you brewed, you did not, right? So sometimes it helps to do that pre-boil gravity, which is what I just took, and I said I was at 1.049 or 45. So you have to write that down before I forget to do that. My pre-boil before it started boiling was 1.045, and I should have been at 1.049, right? And so I was low already. So I knew that going in that I was going to need to, my volume was a little higher than it should have been, and my gravity was a little off. So if you see that, you can always adjust it backwards. If it's not, then your efficiency number could be off. And so your system just gets what it gets for efficiency. There's certain things you can do to change it, but not as much. So one thing you could do is when you're making a recipe, you could then change that efficiency number to be lower to account for that. So if you want a beer that is a higher gravity, you may need to add a little bit more malt to be able to get to that gravity that you want it to be, but that will help you once you know what your efficiency is. And so there are efficiency calculators online, and I think they even have one on like Brewer's Friend, so you can put in your pre-boil gravity before you boiled, like the one we just took, and your post-boil gravity, and that'll not post-boil, and your grain amounts, and what grains you used, and it will tell you what your efficiency was based on what you should get off of those malts, right? And so there are calculators that do that, and then if you consistently are low like that, you can adjust that efficiency down. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I'm telling you, like, it might not be anything you're doing. You're grabbing a recipe maybe online and putting an efficiency of like 80%, and you're not getting that on your mash. So when you're soaking your grains and stuff, you're not going to pull that off, right? But the other part, if you are low like that, you could always boil longer at the beginning before you add any hops to kind of bring that volume down. If you're high, if your volume's high, I mean. But anyway, that's what I'm getting at. I have the claw hammer system, 120 volt, and I use the settings come with the system. I think it's 70%. What do you use? I use Brewer's Friend. My claw hammer system is the 240 volt, but that doesn't matter. I use a Brewer's Friend app, and I've adjusted my efficiency based on using the claw hammer a couple of times. A couple things you can do for efficiency with the claw hammer to make it a little bit higher is make sure that during your mash process, when it's recirculating, you're stirring a lot. Like do it 3, 4, 5 times throughout the time. Make sure you're mixing up that grain a lot so it's not just sitting in this bed in the basket. That's the worst thing you can do because it'll just start bypassing. It won't go through all the grains. So make sure you're mixing it up a lot. Another thing you can do is make sure that you're crushing your grains sometimes twice. If you want to double crush grains, you can definitely do that. That helps with efficiency. If you buy them from a homebrew supply store and you buy them crushed already, then you can ask for them to be double crushed. They will do that sometimes depending on where you buy them. So you can ask double crush your grains and they can run them through the mill twice. And that just helps break them up. Now, if you're using a different system than a claw hammer, I wouldn't do that as much. You can get a stuck sparge doing that. But in a claw hammer system, you can get a lot more surface area with that basket. So definitely you can do that. Do you adjust to hit your OG with water? If you're at 1050 and your recipe says 1055, do you add water to the fermenter? No. So if you're low, by adding water, you'll go lower, right? The higher that number is, it's more concentrated, right? Now you could do that if it was the reverse. If you're at 1055 and you need to go to 1050, because you're high, you could add water to drop it. But the more water you have, the less sugars per gallon you have basically, and that's what this refractometer and your hydrometer is reading, is the amount of sugars that are in that water to make the difference. And if you add more water, it's just diluting those sugars more. So complete opposite, DJ. You would do that though. You can do that at the end, by the way. If your volume is low and you're at like maybe you have only 4.5 gallons, you're supposed to be at 5, but your original gravity is high also, you could do that. If your original gravity is right on point, but you're low volume, I would just leave it and I would just have less beer. But you can do that if you want to. But then you'll have a lower ABV beer at the end of the day because you're going to be adding water to it. So you don't always have to hit the volumes. The gravities are more important to hit, but you can add water at the end if you're high. If you're low on volume but high on efficiency or on your gravity reading, you can add water. Make sure it's non-chlorinated water though. Make sure you're doing it filtered water, spring water, RO water, that kind of thing. Great questions, guys. That's what this channel's all about, man. Keep them coming. So if you are so that's the opposite. If you were the other way around, I would just leave it. I would just say, hey, you know what? I'm 5 points low. At the end of the day, you still make beer. I mean, people get really worried about being 5 points low. You know what the difference between 5 points on ABV is? It's like 0.2 or something. It's not very much. It's like, or maybe even 0.1. It's not very much. And so at the end of the day, you're still going to make beer. It's still going to be flavored the same. It's going to be fine. It's just going to be a little bit lower ABV than you normally were looking for. Totally fine. You know who's going to know? You and only you, and that's it. No one else is going to know that drinks your beer. Sorry, I was getting a phone call that I had to ignore quick that I'm doing a live. All right, so we're in our boil. We have a little bit of ways to go before we get to the last 10 minutes. So what I'm going to do in the meantime is I'm actually going to pull. I have a beer that's actually fermenting in my fermentation chamber. I'm going to pull that out and I'm going to rack it to a keg. But to do that, I got to clean a keg. I don't think I have an extra one that's clean. I have 3 over there, but they're all not clean. Um, this guy keeps calling me. I don't know if he's in an emergency or something or what, but anyway, so I have the beer I have in my fermentation chamber. I have it. I have to pull that thing out, and then I have to get a keg cleaned real quick. So I'm going to do that really quickly, and then I'll show you how I transfer. It might be a little bit different than everybody else transfers, so it might be a good learning experience. But since I got some time to kill before all this, let's do it together. But again, leave any questions, comments that you have in the comment section while I'm doing it. You can ask questions about anything you want, brewing related or otherwise. I am an open book. I will answer it as I can. So let me pull stuff out, and we'll get to it, and I'll show you how I go about transferring stuff to a keg. All right, so I've got all this thing cleaned out. I'm going to pull this thing out of the fermenter or out of the fermentation chamber. It's in the fermenter, and then I'm going to let it kind of settle down a little bit. I don't want to transfer it right away because I might have stirred up a little bit of yeast. I want to just make sure it's kind of sitting there chilled for a second. Oh yeah, you can actually see the yeast that I've stirred up a little bit. So I'm going to let that kind of settle down for a little bit while I'm cleaning the keg. So the thing I have on the top is called a cold crash guardian. I have a whole video on how to do that. Basically helps suck back CO2 rather than sucking back oxygen when you're cold crashing. Looks like that. It's a bag, and it just kind of pulls oxygen from the CO2 from the bag instead of oxygen going into the fermenter. So I'm gonna get a hose. I gotta clean this keg real quick. So give me 2 seconds. Again, put any questions, and I'll be right back. I'm gonna grab this keg cleaner, throw some stuff in there, and then grab some hoses to be able to sanitize, which I have some sanitizer out here to be able to transfer this. But I'll show you how I do that in just a minute. All right, that keg is a little dirtier than I thought, so I'm letting it soak for just a minute, but no big deal. Fester all day, man. What's up, man? So early. Yes, especially after New Year's. I'm sorry about that. Tried making gin. Nice. Too much. If Sambuca now, but my friends like it better than gin. Happy accidents. Nice. Yes, I am here. I'm sorry. I was running in and cleaning a keg real quick so I can transfer this beer, which I have done. It's a different beer. We're not brewing. We're brewing a Spruce Tip IP or Spruce Tip Ale today, and that we got our first round of hops in there. We were waiting during our boil, just watching that pot boil for a little while, and I'm going to do some other things, but answering questions along the way if you got them. So the drinking a Bell Sioux Hearted Ale. We talked a little bit about how to harvest the yeast and stuff out of those if you want to do that. I know Ty did that earlier. He said, but I'm cleaning a keg inside, so I can't do that in front of the camera because I don't have the sink. But I got to run inside, throw some cleaner in there real quick so I can sit and soak. So hopefully I will be back in just a few seconds here when I can be back with you guys, and then I'll show you how I transfer these things from a fermenter into my keg. But I got to get that thing cleaned real quick, and it was sitting with a bunch of fruit and stuff in it, so it's just all gummed up on the bottom with the fruit stuff. So I'm letting it soak in some really, really hot water right now to get that stuff off the bottom, and then I'm gonna soak it with some OxyClean, which I have right here, and that will help pull off all those proteins and stuff, get that all good and cleaned out. So give me just a few more seconds. I'm gonna grab that and some hoses that I can sanitize to transfer this, and we should be good to go. But again, throw any questions in the chat. All right, sorry about that, guys. I'm filling up a keg with some cleaner right now, so I'm not trying not to be gone as much as I am, but I am. So I apologize for that. I am here, so if you don't see me, watch my pot boil for me. All right, the only thing I need to actually transfer is a hose. I put one end with a connection for a ball lock connection, and I use both the connections. I'll show you how I do that when I go to the keg. So, and then the other side will hook up to the spigot I have on the bottom of this fermenter. So I'm gonna grab that keg and shut off the water real quick. All right, then we let that soak. And then I'm going to take these, put these in my sanitizer, which I have in my other fermenter that we're going to be using today, just to get these good and sanitized so we can transfer. I hope that you guys aren't experiencing any buffer. It says that my YouTube is receiving not enough video to maintain smooth streaming, so hopefully it's not buffering for you guys. Let me know if it's coming across weird for you guys right now. I'm getting frame drops on my end. Oh no. I'm hoping that my streaming is just temporary, but usually I have pretty good, strong internet here, so it's weird. Let me see if I can put this thing on priority on my thing here. Oh, now it's saying it's a little bit better. Hopefully it's a little stronger now, but let me put it on priority anyway. A little buffering, not bad in Indiana. Nice. Okay, good. All right, so that I have a keg that's sitting with cleaner in it right quick for a few minutes. We're just gonna let that soak for like 10, 20 minutes, and then I will let this thing settle down. As you can tell, all the yeast is starting to settle back down to the bottom that I did stir up from pulling it out of there, and then I'll show you how I transfer that in a second. Just bottled a wheat ale. It's been about a week and still see the sugary. Hold on. Been about a week and I still see the sugar syrup floating around. My yeast must have died off. You could always shake it up a little bit. As long as you're not introducing oxygen, shake it up. See if you can get that stuff to dissolve. You could also add more yeast. One of the things too, it needs a lot of oxygen. That's one of the things that it doesn't get a lot of. So if it hasn't, and we to ferment. I thought you were in your fermenter, but you said you bottled it. Still see the syrup floating around. My yeast nutrient must have died off. But yeast must have died off. Well, if it may take a little while to kind of pick back up. I don't know that it would have all died off, but a week in a bottle is not very long. So you want it to be longer than that. You want it to be a couple of weeks, sometimes even a month. Sometimes it takes for some real stronger beers or something like that to take hold. Devices. Thought I saw a bird just fly in here. That's why I'm looking over there, but I don't see it. If that's the case, I'd like to open up my garage a little more so I don't poop in my beer. All right, let's see. All right, let's hopefully that'll help with the Wi-Fi connection here. Got that all figured out? Gonna have to pop the tops and add a few granules of bread yeast to get it to carbonate. Maybe, but I would wait a couple more weeks. Honestly, I wouldn't do it just yet. You've only been in a week in a bottle. It's not long enough. That's you can warm them up a little bit by putting them somewhere. I wouldn't put them in light, but I warm them up a little bit. You definitely don't want them to be in a refrigerator or anything. You want them to be at like 70 something degrees. So set them in a bedroom somewhere as long as it's not getting like direct sunlight where it's going to ruin it. But you got to give them a couple weeks. Bottle conditioning takes a little while. Yeah. I guess I don't know what you used for syrup. It says used syrup used up by 5 days, but if you're using that for like carbonation, then what I would do is mix that stuff up when you're putting it into a bottling bucket. I would warm them up because the warm them up will get that yeast active again. I talked to a guy the other day and he put all of his beers after bottling them in the refrigerator and he was wondering why they were still tasting really sweet and they didn't really carbonate up. And I'm like, well, they've been in the refrigerator. Your yeast are not active. You need to warm those things up. Pull them out of the fridge, man. You put them in the fridge after they're good and carved up, right? That's what we're getting at. So that's awesome. Hopefully that will really help it out. Let me go shake up that fermenter or that thing real quick. Where are we at for time? Oh, we got some time. We got about 20 minutes before we got to add our last additions and all our spruce tips and all that junk and start cooling down. Um, but Let me grab that keg real quick. All right, to keep shaking that up, let it, it's really, really hot water and OxyClean, basically cleaning that thing out and hopefully getting all that gunk off the bottom. And then I will run it through one of the lines here to clean it. And so to do that, this is a good time to show that too, is what I do is I actually hook this thing up to the line that is the black one over here on the left or on the right. And if you run the cleaner through there, also let that sit in there for 20 minutes or so, 10 minutes, and that will clean the line out before you put the new beer in there. And then I put sanitizer in the keg, obviously, to clean it. And then I run sanitizer also back through it, just like you're hooking up a beer, run that through. That'll help clean your lines out as well. So basically, I just hooking that up, just sitting on the ground to one of the connections, and then I'm gonna go fill up a. I got a pitcher over on the other side. I'm gonna fill up a pitcher and run some cleaner through it. All right, so now I have the line, as you can tell, all the nasty stuff that came out of the line sitting there. That's all the yeast and stuff. It turns brown because it's hot, but it was raspberry before, so it looked like red when it was coming out. And then this is now just sitting with cleaner in the line right now. So basically, all that old beer is being kind of cleansed from the line. It's now cleaning the line and the tap handle and faucet as we are sitting there. So what you might have saw me, I was moving it back and forth quite a bit because I'm trying to like loosen up anything that might have been gunked up in the inside of the faucet as I was filling that up. So I'm going back and forth on that tap handle as I'm running cleaner through it. And I'll do the same thing with the Star San as I'm running that through there. And then I will usually let that sit in the line until I hook up another beer. But now that I have a beer that's ready to go on tap, I will just put that new tap on there. So and then I can run the sanitizer out as I'm pulling the first pint or two out of my keg to get the stuff off the bottom anyway that I'm going to pitch. That sanitizer will just come out first and it'll fill up with beer afterwards. So you don't have to pull that out before you hook it up to your keg. But it's sanitizer. You don't want to leave the cleaner in there until then. You want to do sanitizer, let it sit in there with sanitizer, not cleaner. All right, let's see where this keg is at cleaning wise. How often do you replace your lines? What tubing do you use? What ID? The ID I think is the normal 3/16 inch inside diameter tubing. That's the standard kind of tubing. I don't even use the red tubing for CO2, even though you can. It helps kind of differentiate between the lines and stuff. I use little zip ties on mine, like colored ones. I have a whole video on how to make a kegerator, and it will kind of show you why I did that. But for each of my uh, for each of my outlines going to the door, and the lines going to the CO2, I have little zip ties of different colors on them so I can tell which one's which. So I know like the two pink ones are going to one keg. I know the two blue ones are going to one green one, red, black ones, that kind of thing. And then on the outside and inside of my taps, I actually have those same zip ties tied. You might have seen them in my video. They're kind of hard to see, but they're in the back. They're like right back here, like yellow, blue, whatever. Those things will tell me kind of when I open the thing which beer is what on the inside without having to have like labels on everything. And so I don't replace my tap lines that often if I keep them pretty clean. But you should do them every, I don't know. Some people do them every, more often than they need to. Mine actually stay pretty clean, and I kind of base it off of how clean they get when I'm cleaning them. Like if I open that up right now, this this line's like 10 feet long and it's pretty clear. So you can see in here, like there's some stuff on the outside, but see how pretty clear it is? Like if it's starting to get like really dingy or whatever, but this is sitting there with cleaner in it now and eventually sanitizer. But if it starts getting really dingy and brown and stuff, I'll change it. But I do a pretty good job of cleaning these out every time, and you shouldn't really need to change them that often. It's more important to clean the faucets more often than that. And I do that every couple of months. So what I'll do is I'll let that kind of sit in there until I'm ready to purge it with some CO2 now, or some sanitizer, excuse me. But I'm going to check my keg and see how loosened up that stuff got off the bottom. One way to check it, and you can still kind of preserve the cleaner, is just dump the cleaner in a bucket. I could probably use this later anyway to clean all my stuff up. And so what I'm going to do is actually just dump this in there. If I need to pour it back into the keg, I can. Yeah. And you can see, well, maybe you can't see, but this thing's actually pretty clean now. Yeah, there's no more raspberry stuff stuck on there. So I'm going to go ahead and rinse this out. We'll get this thing full of CO2, or CO2, I keep saying that. I get this thing full of star sand, and we'll go from there. So we have about 10 minutes or so before we have to add our next round of hops. So we'll start to try to get this thing transferred before then. So give me 1 minute here. I'm going to rinse this out and then fill it up with some star sand, and I'll be right back. One thing I didn't mention was running that line and cleaning those lines like that actually helps clean out the dip tubes that are on the inside of the keg also without having to take it all apart and clean it. You can just run cleaner through the dip tubes to because that's what's pulling up to the faucets anyway. So kind of two birds, one stone. All right, get some sanitizer in here. Gonna shake it up. I'm gonna let that chill for just a second. I'm gonna grab a uh, hydrometer so I can test the gravity as we're transferring this thing in just about 2 minutes. All right, so that's good. We got just a few minutes before our next round here. So I got my line that's going to come from my fermenter sanitized. I've got my two ball lock connections sanitized here. So we're going to set those off to the side here. And I'm going to hook this up onto my fermenter real quick into a little bucket because we're going to run off a little bit of the stuff when I first open it into that pitcher because there's going to have some yeast and stuff I don't want in my keg right away. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let a little bit of that out into the pitcher to get rid of the yeast. Once it starts running clean, I'm going to fill up my hydrometer. Then after that, I'm going to put this connection on that's going to go into the outside of my keg, which means it's going to go down the dip tube to the bottom once I purge it with oxygen. But once we get that set up, then we can get back to dumping the stuff out and running it through the keg. So let me do that first, and then I'll do the stuff with the line here. All right, so now we have sanitizer hooked up. I'm going to run the old cleaner out of the line into this for the sanitizer. That basically just purged that line of any of the cleaner that was in there. That's all came in here now. Now I'm going to dump out the sanitizer out of the keg so let that start draining out. So once that's good and drained out, I'm going to actually take and hook it back up to CO2 to get a little bit of CO2 in the keg to help kind of not get any oxidation as I'm transferring it in there. So I don't need to fill the whole thing up. Some people purge, push all the sanitizer out with CO2. That's a waste of CO2. Just hook it up, get a good blanket of CO2 on the bottom, and then you can start your transfer in because we're filling up from the bottom, and it will raise up that way too. So let me grab that in just a few minutes. Let's do the dry hop additions first, since that's just now we're a little bit behind. So I don't want to miss our dry hop addition here, or not dry hop, our hop additions here in about 4 minutes. So we have a lot of things going on with 10 minutes left in the boil or so. And we have hops that we're going to be putting in. Those are Citra hops that are going to be at, again, 10 minutes left of the boil. We have the yeast nutrient and Whirlfloc tablet, which are also here that we measured out. And then we have our spruce tips that we measured out, right? So I'm going to start putting these spruce tips in here very carefully so I can get them in there without spilling them in the beer. I don't want any of these spruce tips to go in there and then start clogging my pump and all that stuff. So you could put them in a paint strainer bag if you wanted to, but I am going to just carefully put them in this hop spider. And I think this will then keep them all from going into the beer. If I spill any, it'll be on my counter here, not in the beer itself, where I'm going to worry about my pump or something else getting clogged later. And then same with, post, when during fermentation, when I put them in there, I'll put them in a paint strainer bag like I normally do with hops. All right. Good old spruce tips are in there. I actually didn't spill very many. I probably could have done it that way over the boil, but oh well. All right. So we have those ready to go. We have a Whirlfloc tablet and yeast nutrient ready to go. We have our mosaic or Citra hops ready to go. So we are set. I'm going to rinse these two things out later. And then let's purge that keg quick, and then let's do that. So I got 2 minutes left. So basically what I'll do is I'll take my egg, I'll put the lid back on, I'll leave my pressure relief valve open, and then I'll put my outside, my one in eventually on there. For filling it up purposes, you just have to have this thing open so it can purge a little oxygen out of the top. So I'm basically just letting that hook up. I'll let it run for about 20 seconds or so. It's basically pushing CO2 down to the bottom, pushing air out of it, and giving it a little blanket for that beer to kind of land on. And then as the beer fills up, it'll push out all that oxygen, and then eventually we purge the keg anyway. So there's very little bit of oxygen that can really happen at this point. All right, now that this has a little bit of CO2 in there, I'm going to take my actual gas line and I'm going to put it on the inside. That's just going to help let out some of the oxygen slash CO2 as it's filling up. And then this is what I'm going to be using to fill it. So I'm going to just go ahead and do what I said earlier, and I'm going to purge that line with any of the yeast and stuff that comes out, fill up a hydrometer real quick, and then do the hook up this to get it transferring. Well, we're going to do that right after we add our hops, which are right now. So we're going to add a Whirlfloc tablet. That can just go in, doesn't need to be in the hop spider. The yeast nutrient also goes right in, doesn't need to be in the hop spider. The hops, we're going to go put in the hop spider themselves. Again, 1 ounce of Citra hops going in. And then we're going to add our spruce tips also. These are cold, so this might actually slow down the boiling a little bit, but those go all the way down by the heat element. So those will be nice and soaking. But what I'm going to do a couple of times, like I do with my hops, is I'm going to actually take these things and raise them up a little bit to like let the oils get out, right? Let the oils kind of drain out of there a little bit, and kind of stir it around, stir inside, stir outside, that kind of thing. But I don't want to get any of those spruce tips like out. So I'll probably do the same thing with this. Yeah, this actually drained a lot easier on this one. That's what I was worried about on the putting them in the hops. I didn't want to like do that. So I'm just kind of picking them up and letting those kind of drain out. All those flavors get into the beer, and then stir around those hops a little bit. All right, let's quickly get this beer transfer in, and then I'm going to get the cooling side of things set up to start cooling this thing down with my chiller. All right, so here it is. That's kind of hard to see, so I'll move it around just a second so you can see it. It's starting to foam up, so I just want to make sure firm cap's doing its job over here. So that's good. All right, so we have our. I have a small hole at the top. I took off the thing. It is letting oxygen in, but I haven't moved it around, so there's still a blanket of CO2 at the top. The spigot is open going down a tube, but you can't see it. It's just off the screen. Going to the keg, and the keg connection is that black ball lock connection, and then that's going in the keg down to the bottom through the dip tube, and then the CO2 that we've already purged in the keg is getting pushed off into the top with the gray connection and the pressure relief valve open. This thing's starting to boil a good amount here. All right, let me pick these things up and let them drain one more time. All right. And then this thing's coming down. So as we get closer, I'm going to tilt the thing so it kind of leans toward the front, but I don't want a lot of that yeast and stuff to get in there. So once it starts hitting about where that spigot is, I don't want to try to lean and get every last drop out of there. I want to try and just leave it. Um, at the back here, the volume before was just under 5 gallons for this, so I'm not worried about it getting too full in the keg at all. So we're just going to let it continue to go down. Once that's down, I take off the ball lock connection, and then I put it in the fermentation chamber, purge it with oxygen, and it starts carbon up. So that's how that's going to go. And so that'll take a few minutes just to get all that down, and we'll let that do its thing. There is dry hops in there though, so I'm just trying to I was seeing the bag in there. I was like, well, I thought that was yeast, but it's just the bag. I can kind of see. You can kind of see the outline of it over here. There's a bag of dry hops in there. I have my hydrometer reading, which I will take in a minute here. I have my airlock and my fermenter already sanitized, so we got that. I don't have another carrier for that, but I might be able to use that after that's full or done getting full. So let's take a hot little hydrometer reading, see where we're at with this rye beer. I don't want to tell you exactly what it is yet, or what's in it, because that will be for the future video, but we will go for there. Go from there. Excuse me. There's a This table may not be. This might be leaning a little bit. Looks like it finished at 009. Yep, right under 10. So it's right at 009. Take that guy out. Let's give her a taste and see how we did. This is the first one. You can see some yeast particles in there, so I'm not expecting this to be the best, but we'll see what happens. Okay. Funky. It's gonna be a good beer. There's rye in there, so you can definitely tell there's rye. That is uh, a more unique beer than I've made in a while. Again, I'm getting a lot of that yeast taste, which I think will go away. So, and that'll be good. So that's interesting. I think it's going to be a decent beer. Oh man, I tilted that and I put a little more yeast than I wanted to in there, but that's okay. It'll pull out in the first couple pints. Not a big deal. All right, where are we at? We got about 2 minutes left in the boil. I got to hook up my hoses real quick to my chiller. I'm using a plate chiller for this, and I got to use an outlet for my plate chiller that I have to hook up yet too, which is just an extra hose that goes outside. So give me 1 second here. Yeah, of course I would have a leak in my hose the day I needed to use it. That's okay. All right, we are getting down to the end of the boil here, so I'm going to go ahead and shut off the heat. We're going to recirculate with a pump that I have going through a plate chiller back up into the um, uh, boil kettle. Let me grab a clamp here real quick. And we need to add our kind of flame out hops. So we need to add 1 ounce Citra and Mosaic again into the hop spider as we're doing that. I almost forgot the hops. And I forgot that that was going, and it pulled some yeast in there. So no big deal. I guess we just messed up like 3 things all at one time trying to do too much, but that's okay. Brewing, it will still make beer at the end of the day. So while that is cooling down, I'm going to make sure it's circulating, which I don't know that it is. Oh crap. Well, I royally messed that one up. Okay, well, at the end of the day, it's beer. So I'll tell you what I just did right now, which was a huge mistake. I turned on the wrong valve that went to a bucket, which thankfully was in a bucket and not all over the floor, that was cooling down instead of recirculating back up into the fermenter here. So I had to dump the bucket in there real quick, which you probably just saw me do. Oh my God, I totally I need to not do too many things at the same time. Trying to transfer that other thing really threw me off. But anyway, we got it all back in there. It's cooling down now. We'll see this thing. The heat is now off. We're going to start seeing this thing drop to pitching temperatures, hopefully closer to it. It is winter time, so hopefully we're getting under 90, and then the fermentation chamber can take it from there in the 80s. We'll probably pitch low 70s. If we can get into the 70s, great. If not, we will let the fermentation chamber get into the 70s, pitch low 70s, and then do that. So that's where we're at so far. What's everybody up to? I haven't checked the chat in a while because I've been trying to do way too much here. I'm going to get more hop infusion if I don't add a spider, but if you have to filter during transfer, yeah, you can do that. I just don't like to run it through the pump. I do have a whirlpool arm and a counterflow chiller too, which I can use for using a lot of hops. Since there was only 4, I threw it in here. And I kind of know that it's going to be a little bit less, but for like a pale ale, like that's just fine with me. I'm okay with that. I just gotta stir this thing around every once in a while and get the yeast or the stuff caked off the side. Man, I can't believe I had to dump that thing in from a bucket. It's been sitting there the whole time, but that's okay. It didn't have very much of like the old stuff in there from the beginning. I didn't wash it out, but it's fine. It went into wort that is over 150 degrees right now, so it should be okay as it's cooling down. But man, haven't done that one before. And I did it over a live feed, so you guys know, like, it doesn't always go smoothly during brew days. It's just how it goes, man. Ty Wiggins, man, sent 5 Cityscape Brewing gift membership. Congratulations. Thanks, Ty. You are the best, man. I appreciate you. You are the best. You're the man. That helps out the channel a lot, man. You have no idea how much that helps. And then as soon as we start cooling down here and actually getting a little bit closer to pitching, we'll do a final gravity reading and see where we're at. Hopefully that extra little 10-minute boil part at the beginning kind of help drop it, but we'll see. Also just had to dump some stuff from a bucket that had some water and stuff in it too, so you never know what I'm going to get. Oh well. We got our fermenters over here all sanitized at least so we can put it in there, and the yeast will take hold of anything that's in there, so that'll be awesome. Yeah, those things pick regular members to or channel subscribers to become members. Thanks, Ty, man. You're the best. So yeah, I will say these guys these little things saved my life. I use these things like all the time. I have like 3 or 4 of these things in there. So let's get a little hydrometer reading here, and we'll see where we are at. Already at 125 for temperature, so it's cooling down pretty good. So we are looking at, so post-boil gravity was supposed to be 1.060, so 1060, right? So remember how we were talking about a little bit about being a little bit lower and maybe being a little higher on volume, something you really can't do much about unless you boil longer. I knew I might be a little bit low because of that, and it looks like I'm at just a couple points low, not bad, at 1.057. So I am 3 points low. So alternatively, I could have boiled longer at the beginning, more than 10 minutes, but I figured that would at least help me get closer. I am not mad about that at all because my final gravity might be less than what it's saying it's going to be anyway, which is like 10, 12. So I think I'll probably get more like 10, 8, 10, 9, and it might be the same ABV anyway. So being 3 points off, I would not worry about that at all. I am going to take little notes, and we'll go from there. Yeah, and at the end of the day, I always tell people, just relax, have a home brew. It's still going to make beer. Like I said, there's very few beers that I'm hitting these gravities like perfectly. I mean, I get them fairly close within 1 or 2 usually, but not like perfectly every time. You're always going to have some weird thing happen, right? There's some buzzing thing going on. I think it might be because of my pump, but yeah, shouldn't be anything clogging it. So it might just be because I have it attached to that table now. So we'll see. Oh well. To each their own. Let's see where we're at. Did it drop any more to cool down? Nope. Yep. Still staying at 10.057 or 1.057, 1057. So I am not mad about that at all. Being a couple points low, 3 points low is not the end of the world. If anything, I'm close to where I was at. That's why I said, don't worry about it. It's still going to make beer. At the end of the day, my final gravity could be a little bit lower and be the same ABV or very similar anyway. So no biggie. Any questions that I haven't answered that might be up above that I missed when I was going on? We have this, like I said, we're using West Coast A01 to pitch, and we're going to wait till this gets a little bit colder. The fermentation temperature is probably going to be about 67 degrees, which is right between, yeah, so the recommended fermentation temperature is between 60 and 73. So I'll probably shoot for the middle range of that is like 66, 67. So I'll do about 66 degrees for this one. And it's already starting to kind of swell up a little bit, you can see. So that means that yeast is starting to wake up and be active. As this thing gets closer, which I'm not going to wait till the whole thing cools down in my fermentation chamber to be on live, but I will also make sure that I sanitize the crap out of the bag quick. I usually just dunk it in there, let it sit on something real quick, dunk it in my sanitizer, and then pitch it right in there. I do put a tilt hydrometer in there as well, so I can see where that's going. And I use my tilt pico that I have. I did a whole video on that. That thing is awesome, really, really awesome. I was off by a whole 1% on my porter this year, and it was still really good beer. Exactly, exactly. At the end of the day, you're making beer, and your friends that come over and try it, are they going to know that you tried to hit a different gravity and missed? No, they're going to try a beer, and they're going to say, "Boy, this is good beer," and they're not going to say much about it. Some of us relate. Can you give us some background, such as behind this brew day? Absolutely, real quickly. I'll go through the whole thing again real quick. For those who kind of jumped on a little bit later, no big deal. We did a spruce tip IPA. What we did for our mash is a grain bill of 11 pounds of Pilsner. And I'm going to have all this stuff in the video description later afterwards. I just didn't have it before the video is here. So eventually you can go check this out in the video description if you're watching this after the fact, or you can come back later. It'll be still live for everybody for a couple of weeks. And then, of course, the channel members, it's live forever. You get to watch them forever. 11 pounds of American Pilsner, half a pound of each Dark Munich, Vienna, and Carapils malts. So it'll be 12.5 pounds of malts, right? Then you have hops for 60-minute edition. I did Mosaic. Then I did a 10-minute edition of Citra hops. And then again at 1 minute, or basically flame out like I did today, right as I'm starting to shut off and starting to cool down, throw in another ounce each of Citra and Mosaic hops there. And so 4 ounces of hops total there. I also added the spruce tips, which makes it the spruce IPA, pale ale, that kind of thing, right? And that is 5 ounces of spruce tips at 10 minutes in the boil. That's what's in this smaller hop spider. And it's kind of getting a little clogged on the outside with hops, but there's 5 ounces of spruce tips in there. And so that's awesome. I'm going to start cooling that down, or spinning that around a little bit just to get all the liquid out of both of those. And then we'll add a little bit more spruce tips in for fermentation. So for yeast, I'm using the West Coast Ale1 yeast from Omega, which is a lot like the yeast that I use for like the Celebration, or not, well, both Celebration and Sierra Nevada's Pale Ale. It's Sierra Nevada's is the closest kind of Chico yeast that has a little bit of this more fruity, citrusy flavor than like a US05 or a White Labs 001. I wouldn't use that. I would use this West Coast Ale1, has a little bit more of this kind of fruitier and really plays well with the hops. So I'm adding that one as well into this recipe. It's a pretty light recipe. The caramel malts and stuff like that, there's not any of those. And so the you'll get a little bit of bready toastiness with the Vienna and the Dark Munich. Not toastiness, but bready slash different complexity of malts with those two hops in, but not with the sweetness that you get normally from a crystal malt. So that's pretty good. Joe, man, thank you. Or you're saying thank you to Ty? Yes, thank you, Ty, man. Joe rocks. Ty's giving out the memberships, and so for channel members now, like Joe, he can get the brew day sheets early, or videos early as they drop. He gets the brew day sheets. He gets all my old lives. He gets the videos before anybody else watches them. They're up on my channel a few days early. Then he gets to watch those before anybody else, and some other perks as being a channel member. Plus, you get an awesome green name on the chats and some extra emojis and all that kind of stuff. So that's awesome. Way to go, man. That's pretty cool. So I have my fermenter. I always use these. I actually got another one for Christmas because someone gave me a gift card. Thank you to Santa. He gave me a gift card for Alt Bev, which is where I get all my stuff. And I got another 7-gallon fermenter. So I'm going to use this guy once this thing gets down to, oh, it's already in the 80s. Look at that. It's almost ready to start transferring into this fermenter. And to do that, I usually use a little screen, but I will a lot of times just put that thing in here and kind of shake it around and to get it really aerated. And if I need to, I will use a wand thingy, a wine degasser. It's called this thing, and spin it around really good to get a lot of oxygen in there. But that's only if I have to let it sit in the fermentation chamber a really long time. For how cool the water is for ground temperature right now, it's cooling down really well. So I'm actually, it's reading in there, but as it's coming out of the tube, I bet it's already in the 70s. So I think it's going to be right at pitching temperature at like any minute. So I'm going to go ahead and start transferring this thing into the fermenter now and get that thing all ready to go. Let me see if I can tilt down my thing so you guys can see that. Oh, you guys can see it pretty good, I guess. I didn't know how well you could see it from over there, but I'm trying to get as good as I can. Thing's filling up the fermenter now. Pumps are a little slow, so I might have had a little bit something come through there, but that's okay. It'll get in there eventually. But coming out of the fermenter, it's way less than 82. It's still 82 here, but it still hasn't gone through the chiller before it gets to the fermenter, so it's probably in the 70s already. And I'm probably going to be able to put this in the fermentation chamber and pitch it pretty close. So it's to the end here. So that's pretty awesome. We'll get this thing filled up here. We'll throw our hydrometer in there once I get that thing taken out of this one, and we'll be ready to go. Any last minute questions and stuff as we're going? Throw them in the chat section. I appreciate everybody being here today and watching me make mistakes for about 3 hours. So that's been awesome. Brew day at the end of the day, it's gonna make beer, and it is what it is. I'll do another follow-up video on this thing, Spruce Tip Ale video, to see where everything's at. And then see how it turned out. I mean, we don't know until it gets all done, but I am going to be adding some of those spruce tips in the secondary, so I'll do a little video on that and show everybody when I taste this thing how it turned out and what I would do differently, if anything. So we'll go from there. But I appreciate all you guys jumping on today. You guys are amazing. Always an awesome community, as always. We're going to do another live, probably not this weekend, but it'll be next weekend. So 2 Sundays from now, normal time at 8 p.m. So if you guys have any questions, last minute, throw them in the chat. If not, send me an email with your name, address for stickers to cityscapebrew@gmail. It'll come down the bottom of the screen. And we're almost wrapping this thing up. All right, let's get this thing cooled down. All right, that is the game. Is it really a brew day without a mistake or two? No. Patrick, thanks for noticing it. It was that's why I kind of like doing these things, because even as many times as I've done this before, I mean, over years and years, right? It always has extra stuff. There's always stuff. There's always things that happen, right? And so, don't get discouraged just because you made a mistake during a brew day. I literally had to sanitize my whole arm and reach in and grab an O-ring out of a bucket when I first started, and it turned out to be one of the best beers that I made. It is what it is. It just happens, right? So don't get discouraged. But anyway, thank you guys for all showing up. You guys are the best. I'm going to head out. I'm going to try to clean up all this stuff. You don't want to watch me clean up the whole time, I promise. But I appreciate you guys all being there. The beer is in its fermentation chamber. I'm going to pitch this thing after I throw a hydrometer in there, see where the temperature's at, and then we're going to pitch this thing and let it do its thing for a couple of weeks. We will be back, obviously, to taste this thing and see how it turned out on a future video. So I won't do that on a live. I'm going to do that on a long form video. We'll talk about the whole recipe again, and then I'll link back to this live day if people want to go watch it. So I appreciate everybody being on. You guys are amazing. You guys are awesome. I appreciate everybody being on here today. And until next time, come on in 2 Sundays from now. We'll be on at 8 p.m. and we'll have a good time in the chat again, as usual, for another live. But next week, I'm going to try to put out a video on Monday. Then I have a live that next Sunday. So hopefully a couple more things on the channel. Will be a little bit more consistent in 2026. But Happy New Year to everybody, and hope everybody had a Merry Christmas. And we'll see you guys in a couple of weeks. Thanks, guys. Cheers.